Chapter 397. The soul-severing blade was worth 20,000 contribution points, while the flame wave slash was worth 50 million contribution points. After handing over the contribution points to the white-haired cultivator, he left the inheritance hall. After bidding farewell to Palace Master Gu, he left the Netherworld sect and returned to his family. He didn't return to Jade Spring Peak, but went directly to Jade Pine Mountain to cultivate the two new techniques. The soul-severing blade took 10 days to condense a 3-inch-long divine sense knife with a killing range of about 1 mile. The knife's speed wasn't slow. Among the techniques Wang Daoyuan grasped, it was second only to the Earth Divine Lightning and Feather Blade. It was effective against opponents who didn't have powerful escape techniques. It was slightly weaker than the soul-severing blade, and it consumed more energy. It consumed about 10% of his divine sense, but there was no risk of hurting himself. Moreover, he wasn't afraid of being discovered when using it. It had only been 10,000 years since the 10,000 corpse Daoist master ran amok. Someone might recognize the soul-severing blade. The flame wave slash was relatively easy to learn. It was just a very ordinary grade 3 technique. A huge wave of flames had 3 times the killing power of a low-grade grade 3 sharp metal divine sword talisman. The only special feature was that it could be stacked multiple times. Against cultivators who could fly, the hit rate was terrible. Against demonic beasts who couldn't fly, it was very reliable. Wang Daoyuan exchanged this technique to complement the divine heaven burning technique. He didn't care if it was weak when used alone. After cultivating, Wang Daoyuan didn't find any more demonic beasts to test its power. During this time, he had already dealt with 2 grade 3 demonic beasts. If he killed too many, he might anger a high-grade grade 3 demonic beast. It was also time to improve his alchemy skills. Without the purple rhythm pill, his cultivation speed was terrible. The spirit plants in the space of the spirit pearl also needed to be adjusted. Now that he was already a Zifu realm cultivator, there was no point in keeping those grade 2 spirit herbs. The purple cloud grass used to make grade 2 talismans was basically useless now. He still had a lot in stock. He might as well uproot all of the purple cloud grass and leave some seeds. The raw materials for the grade 2 rejuvenation pill, essence condensing pill, and soul strengthening pill were also uprooted. The red-scaled pine was used to burn rank 2 spirit charcoal, which meant that only the pine nuts had some value. The growth rate of the blood dragon wood was slow, and there was a serious shortage of spiritual charcoal. For the time being, 1 mu of the red-scaled pine was set aside, and 4 mu of spiritual fields were cleared. A total of 13 mu of spiritual fields were cleared out. Among them, 5 mu were planted with blood dragon wood, 5 mu were planted with purple dragon ginseng, and 3 mu were planted with purple dragon pills. Blood dragon wood was the raw material for Tier 3 talisman paper and Tier 3 spirit charcoal. Naturally, they had to plant more of it. Needless to say, the purple rime pill had a slow growth rate and a high demand. No matter how many he planted, he could never have too many. Although the meridian shielding pill was not bad, the consumption was very small. It was enough to keep 1 mu of the original. His success rate in refining the meridian shielding pill was only 45%. If he started refining the purple rime pill now, it would consume too many materials. He spent more than a month refining a cauldron of meridian shielding pills every day. The materials were almost used up, and the success rate had increased to 50%. He could now try to refine the Tier 3 middle-grade purple rime pill. The purple cloud pill's main ingredient, the purple cloud dragon pattern ginseng, was relatively rare, and he did not have much of it. In order to conserve the purple dragon ginseng and increase the success rate, he used his life spirit fire to refine the pills. Although the consumption of spiritual power and spiritual sense was high, it increased the success rate by around 5%. The pill toxins were also much less. Now that the royal jelly and hidden cloud tea had little effect on removing the pill toxins, he did not dare to eat large quantities of spiritual herbs like before. If he could reduce the pill toxins, he would do his best to reduce them. He would refine a cauldron every 3 days. After failing, he would refine the next cauldron. After 2 months, the success rate of refining the purple rime pill had finally reached 30%. After another month, he had used up all the spiritual herbs and refined a total of 70 pills. These purple rime pills only had 1/3 of the pill toxins left in them. Even so, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to consume large quantities. He would consume 1 pill every month. After refining it, the cultivation effect would last for 3 months. For a Violet Palace realm cultivator, 3 times the cultivation speed could save 40 years. The hidden cloud tea was already better than nothing, but he still insisted on drinking some every day. This thing had very high requirements for the environment. Apart from the life spirit fire, it was difficult to grow in other places. This hidden cloud tea was already a second-tier mid-grade plant and showed signs of advancing to a second-tier high-grade plant. However, even if it was a second-grade hidden cloud tea, it would not be of much use to him. He did not know how long he would have to wait for it to become a third-tier spiritual plant. If he had the chance in the future, he would go deep into the hidden cloud continent of the 100 Rivers Lake and see if there were any third-tier hidden cloud tea trees. After cultivating for a year, Zhou Wan sent news that she had investigated the whereabouts of the dragon seed. She asked him to bring 10 purple rime pills and 100 jars of spirit peach dew to meet at the old place. This old place was also the place where he and Zhou Wan fought twice. It was only 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers away from Jade Pine Mountain. There were very few cultivators on the way, so he did not even bother to disguise himself. Putting on the cloak that Zhou Wan gave him, he flew north on his sword and arrived at the northern foot of Huiyan Mountain, the outer boundary of the sky/mountain range. He waited here for 12 to 14 hours, but no one came. Just as he was about to send a message to ask, a fiery red sword light slashed at him. Wang Daoyuan took out the white tiger blade and waved it to shatter the sword light. He scanned the surroundings with his divine sense, but he did not find any traces of enemies. Suddenly, a black shadow pounced at him with a red sword in his hand. Wang Daoyuan recognized that the spiritual energy fluctuation was from Zhou Wan, so he did not counterattack and dodged the attack. The black shadow brushed past him, and a familiar fragrance came with a hint of alcohol. Zhou Wan chuckled and said, "This cloak that is thicker than a blanket is really useful. Even you were fooled." With that, she put away the cloak and looked at Wang Daoyuan carefully. "This is the first time I've seen your true appearance. You look pretty good. But where did your daunting aura come from? If I didn't see this cloak, I wouldn't have recognized you." Wang Daoyuan looked at her and replied, "Don't you know about the white tiger blade? I comprehended the white tiger sword intent, but I still can't freely withdraw and release it, so I became like this. You're still dressed like before, and your makeup hasn't changed. What have you been doing for the past 12 to 14 hours? I only need several dozen breaths of time to change my appearance." Zhou Wan glanced at him with her phoenix eyes. "It's none of your business. Did you bring the things I wanted? It took me several years to gather all the information that Blood Shadow knew about the dragon species. Giving you 10 purple rhythm pills and 100 jars of wine is already cheap for you." Wang Daoyuan took out a spirit beast pouch and a storage pouch, handing them to Zhou Wan. "Here are 200 jars of spirit peach dew and 20 purple rhythm pills. The sooner you form your gold core, the sooner I can continue to live off you." Zhou Wan's cheeks were somewhat red, but she still said with a straight face, "You're glib-tongued." She handed over a 3-inch thick beast skin book to Wang Daoyuan. In the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian, the records of dragon species that appeared in the past 10,000 years are all here. However, if you want to know about dragon species, is there a need to ask me? Chapter 398. In Feng Shui, the dragon vein was also considered a dragon. In time, it had the chance to transform into a true dragon. There was even a rumor that the earliest dragon clan was born from the dragon vein. Where the dragon vein was, there must be true dragon chi. Humans usually couldn't feel it, but dragons could. True dragon qi could improve the purity of dragon blood, which was a fatal attraction to dragons. However, there was no such saying in Beiyuan Xiuxian. He wasn't sure if the fortune-tellers in the Archaic Mysteries sect had such a saying. He could ask Zhou Xian, that little fortune-teller, when he met him in the future. Yuchuan Peak might have obtained the true dragon qi from the 2 dragon veins or attracted the dragon species here. Or maybe the indigenous aquatic beasts obtained the true dragon qi and awakened the dragon bloodline in their body. In the past 10,000 years, many dragon species appeared. There was the old ancestors' dragonfish, and then there was the Qingjiang carp. Even the Jade Spring Peak specialty jade dragon algae grew into a small white jade dragon when it reached the 3rd level. This thing couldn't survive without the jade dragon spring. Even if the life spirit fire contained vitality and had the effect of reviving spiritual plants, it could only barely keep the 1st level jade dragon algae alive. The 2nd and 3rd level jade dragon algae he transplanted earlier were all dead. The 1st level jade dragon algae that survived were half dead. There was no hope for them to advance. Moreover, this thing could actually break the bloodline shackles of aquatic beasts. It probably contained some true dragon qi. It needed to be in an environment with true dragon qi to grow and advance normally. The jade dragon algae couldn't grow well in the space of the spiritual pearl, probably because the space lacked true dragon qi. Wang Daoyuan put away the beast skin book. Zhou Wan took out 2 jars of wine and said, I haven't seen you for a few years, and I don't even have a drinking partner. Today, you have to drink with me. He waited here for 12 to 14 hours, and the sky was already dark. However, the vision of a qi refinement cultivator was not affected by the night, let alone a Zifu realm cultivator. Wang Daoyuan looked around and asked, This is the wilderness. You're a weak woman, and you still dare to drink? Zhou Wan smiled sweetly. You are the most dangerous person here. As long as you don't have any evil intentions, what danger can I be in? Wang Daoyuan channeled his spirit energy to calm his unstable qi and blood before saying, I'm an upright gentleman who only cares about cultivation. Why would I have any ill intentions towards you? Then, he used the earth mountain technique to condense a stone table and 2 stone stools. He placed the wine jar on the table. He then took out some red-scaled pine nuts and dried meat, saying, There's no point in just drinking wine. I have some dishes that go with the wine. The 2 of them drank for the whole night, and each of them drank 5 or 6 jars of wine. Fortunately, the spirit peach dew was not very strong. If it was the scarlet blood brew, the 2 of them would have been knocked out. Along the way, some demonic beasts came to join in the fun. When Wang Daoyuan activated the white tiger blade and released a bit of his aura, they were all scared away. In the blink of an eye, the sky was bright. The 2 of them had eaten and drank to their heart's content. It was time for them to return home. Wang Daoyuan smiled. I still need to live off a woman again. Help me gather information about ancient cultivators who are famous for playing with fire. It would be best if you know the location of an Immortals cave or tomb. It would be good if you know the general area. Zhou Wan asked doubtfully, You want spiritual fire? It's not hard to find. There are many of them on the surface. If you have the ability, you can just go and snatch them. If I had the ability, would I still need to live off a woman? Wang Daoyuan asked in a righteous manner. Zhou Wan covered her mouth and laughed for a long time. Her whole body was trembling violently. Wang Daoyuan immediately took out the profound ice jade essence and extracted the cold energy from it. He suppressed his somewhat violent qi and blood so that he wouldn't be unable to control himself. After she stopped laughing, she said, I've never seen someone who lives off a woman so righteously. Okay, I'll gather information for you. But the reward can't be low. Wang Daoyuan patted his chest and promised, Don't worry, 20 purple rhythm pills is nothing. Later, Wang Daoyuan returned to Jade Pine Mountain and Zhou Wan returned to Yanfang City. Before leaving, she took away Wang Daoyuan's 2 storage bags. One was filled with red scale pine nuts and the other was filled with dried meat. After Wang Daoyuan returned to the Jade Pine Mountain Immortals cave, he put the animal skin book that Zhou Wan gave him into the space. He let his clone Li Qingxuan take a good look at which places had dragon species. Although there was a Qing River carp at home, it was still raised by his family. If it awakened the dragon bloodline, it could become the clan's divine beast. With the long lifespan of dragon species, even if it could only cultivate to the 4th rank, it could still protect the family for thousands of years. Killing it to refine tools was too much of a loss. Besides, that Qing River carp was only a 2nd-rank low-grade dragon. It would take many years for it to condense a pseudo-dragon ball. Zhou Wan was very attentive in collecting information about dragon species. She didn't simply record the information, but also recorded the number of times dragon species appeared in detail. In addition to the conclusive evidence of dragon species, she also recorded some rumors. She recorded in detail the places where dragon species were most likely to appear. Now, there were 3 places where dragon species were confirmed to live. One was the extreme cold ice field at the northernmost tip of Beiyuan Shoshin. There were many ice attribute dragon species there, but there were also some 4th-rank dragon species there. With the protection of the 4th-rank dragon species, daring to touch the dragon species there was no different from courting death. The second was the Thousand Dragon Mountain near the Sky/Mountain Range in the southeast corner of Zhao. There were several 4th-rank flood dragons there, and one of them was even at the peak of the 4th rank. If one dared to go there, they would definitely die. The third was the Mirage Dragon Sea, which was east of the Sky/Mountain Range and tens of thousands of miles north of Linhai State. It was shrouded in fog all year round, and there were mirage dragons lurking in the fog. It was said that in the past 10,000 years, many people had explored the fog sea, but no one had ever come out. Even golden core cultivators would find it difficult to survive in these 3 places. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't risk his life for a natal magic artifact. Apart from these 3 places, the place where dragon species appeared the most frequently was the Qianlong River in Zhou. The Qianlong River was also a tributary of the Wanchuan River. At the mouth of the Wanchuan River, dragon species would appear every 50 to 60 years. No one cared about the dragon species there, and whoever had the ability could kill them. This was also the most reliable place to obtain pseudo-dragon balls. However, with his current strength, it was still very difficult to obtain dragon species. If he wanted to obtain more resources, increasing his strength was the most important thing. He took the purple rhythm pill and continued to increase his cultivation. In addition to cultivation, he also had to nurture the white tiger blade. After all, most of the strength of a Zifu realm cultivator relied on their natal magic artifact. When he was drinking with Zhou Wan, he also asked the trick of communicating with his natal magic artifact. The answer he received was to spend more time nurturing it. It was best to place his natal magic artifact in his Zifu realm and directly contact his soul. This would only be slightly faster. Zhou Wan had spent more than 30 years nurturing her natal Dharma artifact before she was able to communicate with it. Wang Daoyuan felt that he should be able to speed up a lot. After all, Zhou Wan's Zifu realm phenomenon was a scarlet wan, and her Dharma artifact was a phoenix. Although they both belonged to the phoenix race, there were still some differences. It should have a great impact on the nurturing speed. Chapter 399. The biggest difference between controlling the White Tiger Blade and controlling an avatar was that the White Tiger Blade consumed the spirit power of the main body. However, the power of the natal magic weapon was also based on one's own strength. Unlike controlling an avatar, no matter how strong one's combat experience and skills were, they would be restricted by the avatar and could not be used at all. After leaving the cave abode and going outside the formation, he tried to use only spirit power and not divine sense to control the White Tiger Blade and cast sword cultivation spells. He tried the myriad sword art, the black tortoise sword shield, and the demon-resisting sword bell, and he could successfully cast them all. When he tried to cast the heaven-cleaving sword and the endless sword sea, he could not cast them. Without consuming divine sense, he could cast some spells that consumed less spirit power. For the time being, he could not cast spells that consumed a lot of spirit power. This was also because he had just achieved a mental connection with the magic weapon. In the future, when the magic weapon was stronger, he might be able to cast the heaven-cleaving sword. From this, one could see the strength of sword cultivators. Even if other cultivators could communicate with their natal flying sword, they could only control the flying sword to release sword light, control the flying sword Dharma image, and use the flying sword itself to attack and defend. On the other hand, sword cultivators could cast some sword cultivator spells without consuming their divine sense, so they were superior in terms of life-bound magic artifacts. Even if one did not consider the power of the sword intent, sword cultivators had a big advantage over ordinary cultivators. In addition, the flying sword nurtured by the sword intent was even more lethal. Sword cultivators put all their energy on the natal flying sword, focusing on the sword and walking the path to the end. Compared to other cultivators, their methods were more simple. For most non-sword cultivators, their natal magic weapons would have some special abilities, such as the vermilion bird fan to control fire and the Kirin seal to suppress. In a real fight, sword cultivators might not necessarily win. With a mental connection with the white tiger blade, the sword could follow the heart, and he could only consume spirit power to fight with the enemy. With the spiritual wine in the space of the spiritual pearl, he did not have to worry about the consumption of spirit power. In the future, when he fought with others, he could fight to his heart's content. With his control of the white tiger blade improved, Wang Daoyuan planned to go out and kill 1 or 2 rank 3 demonic beasts. At this moment, the third brother, Wang Daochang, sent a message saying that Yi Changxing of the Divine Weapon Pavilion had come to visit, saying that he had something important to discuss with him. Wang Daoyuan immediately rode his sword back to Jade Spring Peak. The third brother accompanied Yi Changxing to talk in the auditorium. The last time he saw Yi Changxing was at his 5th granduncle's Purple Mansion grand ceremony. At that time, he had just entered the threshold of the late foundation establishment stage. Now, he was already at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Seeing Wang Daoyuan enter, Yi Changxing stood up and bowed, "Greetings to Martial Uncle. Under the orders of Martial Ancestor Lei Yan, I am here to invite Martial Uncle to the Divine Weapon Pavilion." Wang Daoyuan was startled. Why was he suddenly invited to the Divine Weapon Pavilion? He asked, could it be that Dao Yin has opened up his Violet Palace? Yi Changxing answered, it was indeed Junior Martial Uncle who established his Violet Palace. His Violet Palace anomaly was the Purple Thunder Divine Flame, which was exactly the same as Grandmaster's Violet Palace anomaly. The embryonic form of youngest Martial Uncle's Purple Palace was 7 inches and 8 parts. Although it wasn't unparalleled in the world, it was still very rare. Grandmaster Lei Yan was overjoyed and decided to invite everyone to hold a grand ceremony for youngest Martial Uncle. As youngest Martial Uncle's only close relative, Grandmaster has instructed me to invite you over. Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed. He knew that Yi Changxing's special physique had great potential, but he didn't expect his Violet Palace anomaly to be so powerful. There were all kinds of Violet Palace anomalies. Wind, fire, and lightning anomalies were extremely rare, but they were all extremely powerful. Most of them were comparable to Divine Beast anomalies. The strength of the Purple Thunder Divine Flame could be seen from Daoist Lei Yan. Daoist Lei Yan's name came from his Violet Palace anomaly. His lesser ability was also the Purple Thunder Divine Flame. When he executed his divine ability, it had the explosive power of lightning and the scorching effect of flames. Although Daoist Lei Yan wasn't a half-step Yuanian cultivator, his strength wasn't much weaker than a half-step Yuanian cultivator with his lesser ability. It was especially effective against heretic cultivators. With Yi Changxing's Violet Palace and the Purple Thunder Divine Flame anomaly, it's only a matter of time before he forms his golden core. He smiled and said, Dao Yin is my blood brother, so I naturally have to attend his Violet Palace grand ceremony. When will I leave for the Divine Weapon Pavilion? Yi Changxing replied, Martial Uncle, youngest Martial Uncle's Violet Palace grand ceremony is 2 months later. 1 month later, please come to the Divine Weapon Pavilion's shop in Clear Glass City. There will be a flying boat heading to the sect. Martial Uncle, you can take the flying boat. Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, I'll be there on time. Yi Changxing bowed and said, Grandmaster Lei Yan also said that he hasn't seen Martial Uncle Zhao for many years. He heard that Martial Uncle Zhao has a child, so he hopes that Martial Uncle Zhao can bring your family along. I've already passed on Grandmaster's words to Martial Uncle, so I'll take my leave. Zhao Liang and eighth sister did give birth to a boy, but he wasn't even 10 years old. It was unknown if he had a spiritual root, so he hadn't been officially named. Yi Changxing left the hall and Wang Daochang sent him out of the mountain. Wang Daoyuan sighed with emotion. The little kid who couldn't eat his fill had already caught up with him in the blink of an eye. He went to the family graveyard at the back of the mountain and lit a few incense sticks for his parents. Their youngest son, who they were worried about the most, had also become successful. In the following month, Wang Daoyuan didn't plan to go to Fallen Dragon Ridge and cultivated at Jade Spring Peak. 3 days later, Sect Master Gu came to Jade Spring Peak to see Wang Daoyuan. Sect Master Gu wasn't even 350 years old and had been at the peak of the Violet Palace realm for many years. He was the person with the highest chance of forming his golden core in the Netherworld sect. He was a native cultivator and was said to be the direct descendant of a Grand Elder. In terms of status, he was a sect master, second only to the Grand Elder, the sect master, and the vice sect master. When such a heavyweight came to Jade Spring Peak, the 3 Violet Palace realm cultivators of the Wang clan naturally had to come out to welcome him. After Sect Master Gu was welcomed into the hall and everyone was seated, Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, Sect Master Gu, if you have something to ask of me, you can just send a message. There's no need for you to come here personally. Sect Master Gu smiled and said, there's no need to be so polite. I'm here for Wang Daoyin. We already know about him establishing his Violet Palace realm. The Divine Weapon Pavilion also sent an invitation and I'm sure Daoyuan has also received it. The sect master guessed that when you go to the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Daoist Lei Yan might ask to take you in as a disciple. The Grand Elders and the sect master all believe that if you become Daoist Lei Yan's disciple, it'll be more beneficial for the Netherworld sect and the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Therefore, I hope you won't refuse when the time comes. You can take Daoist Lei Yan as your master, but you can't join the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Wang Daoyuan bowed and said, I understand. If Daoist Lei Yan wants to take me in as a disciple, I'll definitely say that I'm willing to take him as my master, but I won't join the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Sect Master Gu nodded with satisfaction. It's good that you know what you're doing. However, you have to be mentally prepared. This time, Daoist Lei Yan has invited so many people. When the time comes, I'm afraid all the influential forces will send people to attend. Daoist Lei Yan has a violent temper and has offended many people. Although there's no life and death feud, there are many people who want to embarrass him. When the time comes, someone might find trouble with Daoyin. Wang Daoyuan's face turned serious. Who will make a move? Please advise me, Sect Master Gu. Sect Master Gu stroked his beard and smiled. The sect master didn't guess wrong. He said you're loyal and righteous. If someone wants to deal with Daoyin, you'll definitely make a move. There are mainly 2 people who don't get along with Daoist Lei Yan. One is Tai Sword Sect's Daoist Profound Thunder, and the other is Wind Snow Deity Palace's Daoist Ning Shuang. At Daoyin's Violet Palace ceremony, their disciples will definitely make a move. Although Daoist Heaven Glimpse of the Archaic Arcanum sect doesn't have any grudges with Daoist Lei Yan, he has an extremely good relationship with Daoist Profound Thunder. Perhaps, his disciples will make a move. The disciples or juniors of the 3 of them are all top-notch geniuses. Although you're a Penta-Spirit Veins cultivator and are known to be invincible in the same stage, in front of them, you might not be able to gain an advantage. Chapter 400. The Tai Sword sect was located in the southwest corner of Beiyuan Shoshin. It was also the strongest sword sect. Sword talismans were one of the 3 major sects of spirit talismans. It was also one of the specialty of the Tai Sword sect. The Wind Snow God Palace was located in the northwest corner of Beiyuan Shoshin. It was near the border of the Arctic ice plains. It was an extremely unconventional sect that only recruited female disciples. Because it was near the Arctic ice plains, most of the sect's disciples were ice cultivators. Apart from that, the Arctic ice plains was the only music sect in Beiyuan Shoshin. Their music cultivators were not as simple as the soul-extinguishing bell. The soul-extinguishing bell attacked indiscriminately. Apart from the user's own golden light barrier, everything around them was the target of the attack. The attack method was also extremely simple. It relied on sound waves to forcefully injure the opponent's soul. The orthodox music cultivator's legacy focused most of the power together to attack a specific target. Although the surrounding people would be affected, the effect would be very small. The attack method was not just brute force. There were also illusions and the like. Wang Daoyuan was unconcerned. Although these top geniuses are powerful, they should be quite arrogant. They won't bully the weak. The ones looking for trouble are only early-stage Zifu realm cultivators. In a battle of the same level, I'm not afraid of them. It wasn't that he was underestimating his opponents. Ordinary early-stage Zifu realm cultivators rarely refined their natal magic artifacts to the point where they could communicate with their minds. After all, they cared more about cultivation. The disciples of the Wind Snow God Palace and the Archaic Mysteries sect did not need to be too concerned. They also had all kinds of fancy spells and secret techniques, and it just so happened that Wang Daoyuan was the same. The Tai Sword sect spiritual master Xuanlei's disciple should also be a sword cultivator. The sword cultivator's natal magic artifact could only be stronger than his, not weaker. However, sword cultivators did not have many things other than their natal flying swords. As long as he did not have the ability to kill in one blow, it would not be difficult to defeat sword cultivators with his various methods. Sect Master Gu smiled. It's good that you are confident. However, there is no need to be too worried. After all, it's just a spar. If someone was injured during such a joyous occasion, it would be a feud between the two major powers. The few spiritual masters knew their limits and knew the severity of the situation. I am the special envoy of the Netherworld sect. When the time comes, I will take the flying boat with you to the Divine Weapon Pavilion's mountain gate. I'll be staying at Qingli City Square for the time being. If you need anything, you can come and find me directly. After saying that, Headmaster Gu left the hall. Wang Daoyuan and the others sent him out of the mountain. Wang Daoyuan returned to his cave and continued to nurture the white tiger blade. With less than a month left, there was not much point in increasing his cultivation. The time to set off arrived very quickly. Wang Daoyuan brought Zhao Liang, 8th sister, and their children to the entrance of the Divine Weapon Pavilion's shop in Qingli City. Yi Changsheng was already waiting at the door. When he saw Wang Daoyuan coming over, he bowed and said, "Greetings, Uncle Masters. The flying boat is ready and can set off at any time. Please follow me inside." Wang Daoyuan and the others followed behind Yi Changsheng and entered the backyard of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. In a spacious courtyard, there was a flying boat that was more than 200 feet long. It looked like a cargo ship, but there were no goods on it. Yi Changsheng smiled and said, "There are only such flying boats for transporting goods here. Please forgive me, Uncle Masters." Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "It's fine. If it wasn't for the various factions forbidding outsiders from entering, I can go to the Divine Weapon Pavilion's mountain gate myself. It's already good enough to have this flying boat." The territories of various factions would interrogate the foreign Zifu realm cultivators. If he went as an individual and was discovered by other factions, it would be inevitable that there would be conflicts. As the top faction of Beiyuan Shoshin, as long as their flying boat did not fly over other factions' important industries or mountain gates, the other factions would not dare to say anything. Wang Daoyuan and the others boarded the flying boat and found that Headmaster Gu was already on the boat. The two of them exchanged a few words and the flying boat set off. The flying boat flew to an altitude of more than 90,000 feet and headed southwest. In Beiyuan Shoshin, the Nine Heavens astral wind existed at an altitude of more than 10,000 feet. In the nine heavens astral wind, even golden core cultivators would find it hard to protect themselves. Those below the golden core level would definitely die if they touched it. Humans and demonic beasts would avoid it. At 90,000 feet and above, there were basically no traces of flying demonic beasts. The flying boat could avoid a lot of trouble at this altitude. Because they were on a flying boat for transporting goods, the speed was average, about 4,000 miles in 2 hours. It was slightly faster than an early Zifu realm cultivator's flying sword. Wang Daoyuan spent most of his time traveling in the sky beheading mountain range and Huiyan mountain range. The only time he crossed the Thousand River was when he went to support Wucheng Pass. He came to the bow of the flying boat and looked down at the land. Looking to the west, there was a large river coming from the west, but its source could not be seen. To the east was the sky beheading mountain range, which reached into the clouds. The mountain peak was deep in the nine heavens astral wind. At an altitude of more than 90,000 feet, it was still impossible to see the situation on the other side of the mountain. On the land, mountain ranges of various sizes rose and fell. The plains were only in the gaps between the mountain ranges and in the river valleys. It was extremely rare to see a place like Guangyuan Prefecture, where the entire prefecture was dominated by plains. They had to pass by Zhao, Song, Chu, as well as some half-demon territories to the south of Chu. There was no cargo on the flying boat, so it could fly continuously. However, along the way, they had to go around many mountains, demonic beasts, and important industries. After more than 20 days, they finally arrived at the Divine Weapon Pavilion. The place where the Divine Weapon Pavilion was located was called the Treasure Cauldron Mountain. The mountain was shaped like a round crafting cauldron. It did not matter if one did not use a weapon cauldron to craft magic weapons below grade 4. Wang Daoyuan had never used a weapon cauldron before. However, magic weapons of the 4th level and above still needed a long time to be nurtured after they were refined. Hence, a weapon refining cauldron was required. Legend had it that the Treasure Cauldron Mountain was a weapon cauldron left behind by an immortal. After a long time, it turned into a cauldron-shaped mountain. Not many people believed in this legend, but the Treasure Cauldron Mountain did have an auxiliary effect on weapon crafting. The founder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion had carved many auxiliary formation patterns on the Treasure Cauldron Mountain. It was said that the success rate of crafting here would increase by around 5%. For high-grade magic weapons, the success rate would increase by 5%, and the materials saved would be a huge fortune. The flying boat landed in front of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Wang Daoyuan and the others followed Hallmaster Gu out of the boat. In front of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, 3 Zifu disciples came forward to welcome them. The one in the middle was Wang Daoyin. Wang Daoyin's appearance had not changed much, but his body had grown larger. He was over 9 feet tall, and there was a trace of thunder spiritual energy on his body. It seemed that he had just broken through and had not reached the stage where he could control it freely. After greeting each other, Wang Daoyin pulled Wang Daoyuan and Zhao Liang into the sect. Hallmaster Gu was received by the other 2 Zifu disciples. Wang Daoyin laughed. "Second brother, last time when you opened your Zifu, I was in seclusion. I'm currently in seclusion, so I wasn't able to participate in your Purple Mansion grand ceremony. Don't be angry with me." Wang Daoyuan wanted to pat his little brother on the shoulder, but it was rather strenuous. He laughed awkwardly. "Why are we brothers talking about such things?" Wang Daoyin continued, "Master has always wanted to take you as a disciple, but he didn't have any techniques or spells to pass on to you. Now, he's planning to take you as an honorary disciple. I'll take you to see him." The 4 followed Wang Daoyin into the sect. They walked all the way up, quickly arriving at the peak. Upon arriving at the peak, they discovered that below them was a basin with a diameter of over 300 kilometers. Wang Daoyin pointed at a fiery red tree in the middle of the basin. "Second brother, look. That's where Master's cave is. I usually train under that tree." Chapter 401. Finished speaking, he took out a small flying boat that was 50 to 60 feet long, and invited Wang Daoyuan and the rest to board. Then, he steered the flying boat and flew towards the fiery red tree. The top of the mountain was more than 20,000 feet higher than the basin, and there was a flying forbidden array here, so flying on artifacts could not be done. But the flying boat that Wang Daoyuan took out was not affected at all. Wang Daoyuan carefully observed the flying boat and asked, "Brother, I think this flying boat can't fly on its own. It seems that the tool patterns on the flying boat cooperate with the formation patterns of this treasure cauldron mountain to be able to fly." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "No wonder Master always said that my comprehension is inferior to yours. There are really not many people who can see through the secret of this flying boat at a glance. For the safety of the mountain gate, the treasure cauldron mountain is set up with a flying forbidden array. Flying on artifacts is simply impossible. Cultivators below Golden Core can only rely on this kind of flying boat to fly." The spiritual qi concentration on the top of the mountain was also at the level of a high-grade rank 2 spirit vein. Wang Daoyuan was somewhat in disbelief. The location of a dignified first-rate major force had to be at least a high-grade rank 4 spirit vein. The flying boat gradually descended, and the spiritual qi concentration in the surroundings also became higher and higher. When it was more than 1,000 feet above the ground, the spiritual qi concentration already reached the level of a high-grade rank 4 spirit vein. Wang Daoyuan praised, "What a powerful spirit binding array. It binds all the spiritual qi to the ground, and very little leaks out." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "This is the array left behind by the ancestors of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Originally, the Treasure Cauldron Mountain's spirit vein grade was extremely high. It was said that it was once a rank 7 spirit vein. Ever since the formation of the Absolute Heaven Abyss, the spiritual qi concentration in the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian, as well as the spirit vein grade, has been constantly declining. The Treasure Cauldron Mountain was also not spared. Now, it is only at the high-grade rank 4 spirit vein. The effect that the array can play is also getting weaker and weaker. It is said that 50,000 years ago, the power of this array was extremely strong, and very little spiritual qi could leak out. In the periphery of the Treasure Cauldron Mountain, the spiritual qi is not even at the level of a low-grade rank 1 spirit vein. The flying boat's speed was not slow, and soon arrived under the fiery red tree. Everyone left the flying boat. The spiritual qi concentration here already surpassed the level of a high-grade rank 4 spirit vein. Of course, it was still not at the level of a low-grade rank 5 spirit vein. From the 4th rank to the 5th rank, there would be a qualitative change in the spiritual energy. It wasn't something that could be achieved simply by increasing the concentration of spiritual energy. Otherwise, if a cultivator were to compress their spiritual energy using some advanced formations, they would be able to support their breakthrough to the Yuanyin realm. However, simply increasing the concentration of spirit energy would not achieve a qualitative change, and it would never become a level 5 spirit energy. This was also the reason why there hadn't been any Yuanyin cultivators in Beiyuan Xiuxian for 10,000 years. Wang Daoyuan raised his head and looked at the tree. It was more than 1,000 feet tall, and the thickest part of the tree trunk would require more than 10 people to wrap their arms around it. The shape of the leaves was very similar to mulberry leaves. From the branches to the leaves, they were all fiery red. This tree was a mid-grade 4th stage spiritual wood, and its powerful fire spiritual energy was contained within. Otherwise, Wang Daoyuan and the others wouldn't have dared to stay near this tree. Below the tree was a short mountain condensed using earth attribute magic. The short mountain was over 300 feet tall and there was a large door on the south side. This was Daoist Lei Yan's immortal cave. Daoist Lei Yan should be refining right now, so they didn't dare to disturb him. They waited in front of the door for a while. The door opened and Daoist Lei Yan walked out. Everyone bowed, "Greetings Master, Daoist Lei Yan." Daoist Lei Yan waved his hand, "No need to be so polite." Then, he looked at the little fellow in Zhao Yang's arms and smiled, "This is my little grand disciple, right? Come here and let your grandmaster hug you." Zhao Liang handed the child in his arms to Taoist Lei Yan. The little fellow wasn't even 5 years old, but he wasn't afraid of strangers. He even dared to pull Taoist Lei Yan's beard in his arms. Not only was Taoist Lei Yan not angry, he even laughed heartily. Perhaps, this was what they called distant affection. After playing with the little fellow for a while, Taoist Lei Yan asked, "What's your little granddisciple's name?" Zhao Liang replied, "He hasn't been given a name yet." Taoist Lei Yan smiled, "Since you've married into the Wang clan, this child will also follow the Wang clan's surname. As his grandmaster, I'll give him a name, Wang Mingting." The little fellow cleverly replied, "Okay." Taoist Lei Yan laughed heartily again, "Don't just stand outside. Come in and sit." After entering the cave, they felt a strong wave of lightning attribute spiritual energy. There were a few stone benches in the cave, and everyone sat down. Taoist Lei Yan asked, "Dao Yuan, you should already know that I intend to take you as my disciple. I'm already over 880 years old, and I've taken in a few in-name disciples, but none of them have formed a golden core. With Dao Yin's potential, forming a golden core won't be a problem. However, my cultivation technique is dual cultivation, and my cultivation speed in the Violet Palace realm is average. Before I pass away, Dao Yin won't be able to form a golden core. Although I haven't done anything outrageous in my life, and I haven't made any mortal enemies, I have a bad temper. I've offended a lot of people, and there's no lack of narrow-minded people among them. After I pass away, there won't be anyone among my disciples who can shoulder the burden, and they'll inevitably be bullied. It might even affect Dao Yin's golden core formation. Thus, I want to take in a disciple who can form a golden core before I pass away. After I pass away, there'll be a golden core cultivator to shoulder the burden, and my enemies will have some misgivings. Although Penta spirit veins have a slow cultivation speed, you're an exception. You'll be able to open the Violet Palace at around 120 years old. The further you go with Penta spirit veins, the greater the advantage. Your cultivation technique is extremely profound, and you'll have a high chance of forming a golden core in 110 years. I want to take you in as an in-name disciple, are you willing?" Wang Daoyuan immediately stood up and bowed, "It's my honor to listen to seniors' teachings. However, I've already become a Violet Palace elder of the Netherworld sect, and I'm also the manager of the tool refining hall. If I join the Divine Weapon Pavilion, it'll be equivalent to betraying the sect. I'm not afraid of revenge, but I'm worried that the Netherworld sect will make a move on the Wang family. Previously, sect leader Luo also sent someone to warn me that I can't join the Divine Weapon Pavilion." Taoist Lei Yan smiled, "That's not a problem. It doesn't matter whether you join the Divine Weapon Pavilion or not. After Zhao Liang leaves the Divine Weapon Pavilion, won't he still be my disciple? After I pass away, you don't have to care about those in-name disciples of mine. Their potential is limited, and they won't be able to form a golden core. My enemies won't deal with them either. What I'm most worried about is Dao Yin. He's my personal disciple, and can inherit everything I have. After forming a golden core, he can even inherit my position. Some of my enemies have been drooling over this position for a long time. If I don't take you in as a disciple, there won't be any golden core cultivators among my disciples. They'll dare to make things difficult for Dao Yin, marginalize him, and even secretly harm him. Dao Yin won't be able to control some of the connections I've left behind. In addition, I've left some treasures for Dao Yin to assist in forming a golden core, but they might be taken away by force. In the future, it'll be very difficult for Dao Yin to form a golden core. Only with the status of my in-name disciple and forming a golden core, can you have the right to speak. In addition, your strength far surpasses those of the same stage, so my enemies won't dare to play any tricks. The connections I've left behind will also continue to support Dao Yin. After Dao Yin forms a golden core, he'll be able to inherit my position." Having said that, Wang Daoyuan didn't refuse anymore. He bowed and said, "Since it's for Dao Yin, then as his elder brother, I naturally can't stay out of it." Disciple Wang Daoyuan greets master. Taoist Lei Yan laughed, "Good, good, good. I've taken in another genius. Dao Yin has inherited all my techniques and spells. On the path of refining, although Dao Yin's talent is not bad, he's still slightly inferior to you. There's no problem for him to inherit my path of refining, but it'll be a little difficult for him to take a step further. With your talent, you'll definitely surpass me on the path of refining. The matter of me taking you in as an in-name disciple will be announced at Dao Yin's Purple Mansion ceremony. Wang Daoyuan replied, I'll follow Master's orders. Chapter 402. For the next few days, Wang Daoyuan stayed with Daoist Lei Yan to practice the art of refining weapons. The day of the Purple Mansion ceremony arrived quickly. Although Wang Daoyuan was Wang Daoyin's brother, he was also Daoist Lei Yan's disciple. But this time, he was representing his family to attend the Purple Mansion ceremony. Gifts were unavoidable. Wang Daoyuan had a headache over what gifts to give. Giving a grade 3 magic weapon was the easiest. If it was for other powers, giving a grade 3 magic weapon would be fine. Giving a magic weapon to the Divine Weapon Pavilion was somewhat provocative. Apart from magic weapons, he really didn't have many things that he could take out. There were some good things in the space, but they couldn't see the light of day. In the end, he decided to give 20 purple rime pills, 50 meridian shielding pills, and 10 golden lightning demon extermination talismans. Purple rime pills were needed by all Zifu realm cultivators. Wang Daoyuan only had 20 pills left, and now he took them all out. Ordinary people didn't need meridian shielding pills, but body refinement cultivators still needed to take them frequently. As for the golden lightning demon extermination talismans, Wang Daoyin was influenced by him and liked to use them in fights. These things were worth hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. Ordinary golden core powers wouldn't be willing to give them as gifts. Anyway, they were for his own brother. He didn't want the goodies to flow into other people's fields. The raw materials were all things that grew in the space of the spirit pearl, so there was nothing to be regretful about. The Purple Mansion ceremony was held in the middle of the Treasure Cauldron Mountain Basin. This was also where some important institutions of the Divine Weapon Pavilion were located. The Divine Weapon Pavilion was the #1 power in refining weapons. All the powers in Beiyuan Shouxian had business dealings with them. The Divine Weapon Pavilion held the Purple Mansion ceremony. Most of the powers with golden core cultivators in Beiyuan Shouxian came. Those without golden core cultivators didn't have the qualifications to come. The rule of Beiyuan Shouxian was that the bigger the power, the later they would appear. Wang Daoyuan came as a representative of the Wang family. The Wang family didn't have any golden core cultivators. It could be said that the Wang family was the weakest among all the guests, so they should be the first to give gifts. He arrived at the place where he received the gifts. The person receiving the gifts was a middle-stage Zifu disciple. He wasn't young, and he was dressed in a long violet robe. Wang Daoyuan handed him a gift box and a list of gifts. The purple-robed cultivator bowed and said, Jade Spring Wang family, 20 purple rime pills, 50 meridian shielding pills, and 10 grade 3 low-grade golden lightning demon exterminating talismans. After Wang Daoyuan delivered the gifts, he was led by a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator to the back of the auditorium to wait. The cultivators outside were still queuing up to deliver the gifts, and the sound of the ceremony could be heard. The last 3 clans were the Wind Snow Deity Palace, the Archaic Mysteries Sect, and the Tai Sword Sect. These 3, along with the Divine Weapon Pavilion, were the 4 major powers in Beiyuan Shouxian on the surface. There was also the Blood Shadow in the dark. Each of them had dozens of golden core cultivators and half-step Yuanian cultivators. After all the guests delivered their gifts, they entered the auditorium, and the Purple Palace ceremony officially began. The process was almost the same, which was to praise Wang Daoyin and comfort the souls of the ancestors in heaven. After this process, Daoist Lei Yan said, in addition to my personal disciple establishing the Purple Palace, I'm going to take in an in-name disciple. Daoyuan, come here. Wang Daoyuan walked in front of Daoist Lei Yan and bowed, Master. Daoist Lei Yan continued, this is the in-name disciple I'm going to take in, Wang Daoyuan. He's also Wang Daoyin's older brother. Then, he handed a piece of silk to He Yuanqing. He Yuanqing read the contents of the silk. The general content was praising Wang Daoyuan for his outstanding talent, and receiving Daoist Lei Yan's recognition as an in-name disciple. After reading it out, Wang Daoyuan kowtowed to Daoist Lei Yan. Since he was accepted as an in-name disciple, he only needed to kowtow 3 times. If he was accepted as a personal disciple, he would need to kowtow 3 times and kowtow 9 times. After bowing, Wang Daoyuan could be considered as an official disciple of Daoist Lei Yan. At this moment, a golden core female cultivator wearing a white dress and a veil smiled. Daoist Lei Yan, you've praised your 2 disciples to the heavens. I wonder if they're really capable. It's not easy for so many powers to gather here. Why don't we let the juniors exchange pointers? Just as she finished speaking, an old man wearing a dark golden robe said, Daoist Ning Shuang's words are reasonable. Daoist Lei Yan, I wonder if your disciple dares to exchange pointers with our disciple? Daoist Lei Yan snorted coldly. Daoist Xianlei, Daoist Ning Shuang, I knew you 2 would come looking for trouble. I didn't want to hurt the harmony on this joyous occasion, but you 2 just had to bring shame to yourselves. Daoist Ning Shuang didn't say anything else, but Daoist Xianlei retorted, Old Lei Yan, you're really not afraid of biting your tongue. I admit that I'm not your match, but your eye for disciples is truly lacking. Those in-name disciples from before didn't even have much hope of forming a golden core. This Wang Daoyin's talent isn't bad, and his future is limitless. But he's only just established the Violet Palace realm and is still lacking. I wonder how strong this new in-name disciple of yours is. He's a good seedling for being able to cultivate to the Violet Palace realm with penta-spiritual roots. But with the current lack of spiritual qi, penta-spiritual roots won't be able to do much. Beside Daoist Ning Shuang stood a woman wearing a white dress and a veil. She didn't look old, but she was also an early-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator. She snorted coldly, traitor of the Wang clan, do you dare to fight this princess? Chapter 403. Wang Daoyuan was stunned. Since this person called him a traitor, she was most likely from the Zhao family. However, calling herself a princess was a big problem. Emperor Lai of Zhao had been dead for more than 400 years, and this woman was only around 100 years old. How could she be a princess? He asked curiously, which country's princess are you from? Why are you slandering my Wang family? The woman said angrily, I'm the granddaughter of Emperor Lai of Zhao, the daughter of the new Emperor of Zhao. Your Wang family was a subject of my Zhao family, but the 3 sects rebelled. Instead of quelling the rebellion, you joined the underworld sect. If you're not a traitor, then what are you? Wang Daoyuan was even more confused. After Emperor Lai of Zhao's death, only the 9th prince was supported by the Zhao family. However, he didn't proclaim himself emperor. How could he be the new emperor of Zhao? The woman said proudly, the new emperor of Zhao is naturally the 6th son of Emperor Lai of Zhao. Wang Daoyuan couldn't hold back his laughter. You're talking about the long-legged prince who only knew how to run? He had more than 10 experts of the Zhao family. When his elder brother was surrounded, he just watched as his elder brother was killed. After that, he didn't want to avenge his father and brother. Instead, he only wanted to escape to Linhai Prefecture and save his life. When he escaped, my ancestor killed the Grand Elder of the Savage Sun Palace. The pursuers lost their courage. The long-legged prince had several golden core cultivators with him. Together with the golden core cultivators who came to support him, they didn't dare to attack. How could such a person proclaim himself emperor? The long-legged prince wasn't even crowned king. You're not even qualified to be a princess, so don't call yourself a princess. Everyone in the hall burst into laughter. Everyone knew what had happened in the state of Zhao. Emperor Lai of the 3 princes, the 1st prince was kind, the 9th prince was resolute, and the 6th prince was useless. He was cruel and merciless, but he was also a coward. When the 3 sects targeted him, he immediately ran away before the battle even started. The long-legged prince's nickname was appropriate. Hall Master Gu laughed until tears came out. The Wang family's declaration was breaking off relations with the sixth prince. If the ninth prince's bloodline did not show themselves, then the sixth prince's bloodline was the real threat. The Wang clan breaking ties with the sixth prince was equivalent to breaking ties with the Zhao clan. He was naturally very happy. Wang Daoyuan had never thought of having anything to do with the sixth prince. Even if he had a backup plan, he would only deal with the ninth prince. At least the people of the ninth prince's bloodline had brains and were responsible. The elder of the Cruel Sun Palace had an ugly expression on his face. Why did they bring out the ancestors of Cruel Sun Palace when the two sides were cursing each other? When the sixth prince's daughter heard her father being scolded, she was furious and was about to attack. Daoist Master Ningxuang coughed lightly and said, "Qingxuang, don't be rude." Zhao Qingxuang calmed down for a moment before rebuking angrily, "Your Wang family's Jade Spring Peak was bestowed to you by my grandfather. Since you've received the monarch's salary, you should be loyal to your monarch. You dare to insult Jun Shang. If you aren't a traitor, then what are you?" Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, "Zhao Lai Emperor bestowed the Jade Spring Peak to my ancestor for his meritorious service in killing the demonic beast. Back then, my Wang family had 1 golden core cultivator, 3 Violet Palace Realm cultivators, and more than 20 Foundation Establishment cultivators. After the battle, my Wang family only had 1 heavily injured Violet Palace Realm cultivator and 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators left. The heavily injured Violet Palace Realm cultivator didn't live for long. My ancestor killed 5 golden core cultivators for your Zhao family. In terms of merit, he was number 1. After the long-legged prince fled, the 9th prince was no match for the 3 great sections. His subordinates either fled to dangerous places or surrendered to the 3 great sections. My Wang family persisted until the very end. The Jade Spring Peak was the last piece of land that the Zhao family lost. The Wang family doesn't owe the Zhao family anything. On the contrary, the long-legged prince owes my ancestor his life. My ancestor has been a subject of Zhao Lai Emperor and the 9th prince, but he has never been a subject of the long-legged prince. Where did the insulting of Jun Shang come from? This time, the Cruel Sun Palace's cultivators felt much better when they didn't mention the name of Cruel Sun Palace. The cultivator wearing a 5-colored phoenix embroidered robe looked at Zhao Qingxuang with disdain. If my Zhou family had such a subject, it wouldn't be a big deal for me to be given a title of king and enjoy the imperial ancestral temple. Why is it that the Zhao family is calling him a traitor? The imperial Zhao family doesn't know what's good for them. It would be strange if they didn't perish. The cultivators of the various factions also agreed. Zhao Qingxuang looked at the cultivator surnamed Zhou, not daring to say anything. After all, Zhou and Qin were first-rate countries that were second only to the top factions. Zhou had been established for tens of thousands of years. Its foundation was so deep that even Qin couldn't compare. In the past, Zhao was also a first-rate country. But now, the Zhao family didn't have much left. They didn't have the right to quarrel with others. She turned to glare at Wang Daoyuan. "You little thief of the Wang family, do you dare fight me?" Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, "I don't dare to say that I'm invincible in the same realm, but it won't take much effort to deal with you." The two of them arrived outside the hall. There was a huge square outside. This was the core of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Every building was protected by a formation. Early-stage Zifu realm cultivators couldn't shake these buildings at all. When the two of them arrived outside the hall, the others also walked out and watched from the side. Zhao Qingxuang was full of anger and attacked first. She waved her right hand, and 3 ice swords appeared out of thin air and attacked Wang Daoyuan. After all, Zhao Qingxuang was a golden core disciple. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to be careless. After connecting with the white tiger blade, he hadn't used it yet. It was a good opportunity to test the power of the white tiger blade on Zhao Qingxuang. Wang Daoyuan stood with his hands behind his back. After taking out the white tiger blade, the blade flickered with a cold light. A sword beam flew out, and the 3 ice swords shattered into ice shards. Perfected Lei Yan was delighted. Perfected Ningxuang's expression was a little ugly. Zhao Qingshuang took out a long sword. This long sword was transparent, as if it was carved out of ice. There was even a faint mist on the sword. Wang Daoyuan was so envious that he almost drooled. This was a long sword refined from mystic ice jade essence. How could a fallen royal family like the Zhao family have such wealth? She waved the long sword, and a cold wind wrapped in ice mist attacked Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan immediately used smoke escape and dodged the ice mist, retreating more than a mile away. The clouds left behind by smoke escape instantly turned into snow. Although this move was powerful, he didn't have to use his full strength. He took out the prairie fire sword and slashed out huge waves of flames. Flame Wave Slash was an unpresentable grade 3 Dharma spell. It was definitely not enough to deal with Zhao Qingshuang. Furthermore, the huge waves of flames he slashed out stopped in front of him and didn't seem to be an attack at all. Some of the cultivators at the side also looked disdainful. Zhao Qingshuang continued to attack with ice attribute Dharma spells. Wang Daoyuan controlled the white tiger blade to block all the attacks. After slashing out more than 10 flame wave slashes, a fire wall that was 1,000 feet wide, more than 100 feet tall and 50 to 60 feet thick appeared in front of him. Then, he used the heaven-burning divine fire technique and condensed the phantom of the divine bird, Beiyuan, with a wingspan of only 100 feet. The phantom flapped its wings on the fire wall and a fire whirlwind appeared out of thin air, sucking away the flames on the fire wall. After absorbing the flames, the phantom grew rapidly and its wingspan soon exceeded 1,000 feet. Chapter 404. These ice swords were formed by the cold chi in the mystic ice jade marrow. The ice swords were not weak, and under Zhao Qingshuang's control, they had a certain degree of lethality. He could not leave them alone. Wang Daoyuan took out the black tortoise shield and injected spirit power and divine sense. A huge shield phantom appeared above his head. The ice swords were scattered and did not have the ability to break through the black tortoise shield. The Beiyuan phantom could not waste time there either. If it continued to be blown by the cold wind, it would dissipate soon. He controlled the Beiyuan phantom to pounce at the dark clouds in the sky. The dark clouds no longer expanded, nor did the ice swords fall. Even the cold wind stopped. Soon, the dark clouds began to shrink, finally condensing into an ice sword more than 100 feet long. At the center of the ice sword was Zhao Qingshuang's natal dermic artifact. Zhao Qingshuang used an escape technique and flew through the air. Holding the hilt of the giant sword, she slashed at Wang Daoyuan with all her strength. The Beiyuan phantom flew up and was slashed into a rain of fire by the ice sword. If he used the black tortoise shield to take this attack, it would probably be heavily damaged and he would also be heavily injured. However, the Beiyuan phantom also slowed down the ice sword, giving Wang Daoyuan a chance to counterattack. He recalled the white tiger blade and held it with both hands. He injected spirit power and divine sense into the sword, and a giant sword phantom more than 100 feet long appeared. After comprehending the white tiger sword intent, this was the first time he used heaven-cleaving sword against an enemy. With the sword intent, heaven-cleaving sword's power had undergone a tremendous change. The entire phantom carried a murderous aura and seemed more solid. Wang Daoyuan did not block, but slashed at Zhao Qingshuang. He had the black tortoise shield to protect him. Zhao Qingshuang's ice sword could at most heavily injure the shield. At this moment, Zhao Qingshuang put all her strength into the ice sword. If she was hit by heaven-cleaving sword, she would definitely die. From her words, one could tell that she was a person who did not know the dangers of the world. Her father and master were both golden core cultivators. Even so, it was difficult for them to encounter any difficulties, let alone face death. Wang Daoyuan was certain that she did not have the courage to risk her life, so he exchanged injury for life. As expected, Zhao Qingshuang was afraid. She gave up on attacking and waved her sword to block. However, How could she block Wang Daoyuan's powerful strike when she hastily returned to defend herself? When the two swords collided, Zhao Qingshuang was forced back, and some cracks appeared on her ice sword. Her mind was in a mess. Wang Daoyuan naturally took advantage of the situation to pursue and attack, repeatedly waving the giant sword in his hand. Zhao Qingshuang could only brandish her sword to barely block. Every time the two swords clashed, ice shards would splash out. Wang Daoyuan took advantage of her weakness and swung his sword, causing Zhao Qingshuang's ice sword to fly out of her hand. He slashed out with his sword again. Zhao Qingshuang had no time to retract her sword and could only use her escape technique to dodge. The sky-cleaving sword slashed the ice giant sword. At this time, the ice giant sword did not have the support of its owner's spiritual power and was smashed to pieces. The flying sword wrapped in the ice giant sword was also sent flying. At this moment, the power of the heaven-slaying sword had been exhausted, so Wang Daoyuan simply dispersed the heaven-slaying sword. Zhao Qingshuang wanted to retract her intrinsic Dharma artifact and fight again, but Wang Daoyuan had finally gained the upper hand. How could he let her have her way? His right hand pointed at Zhao Qingshuang, and the white tiger blade attacked in the direction he pointed. Zhao Qingshuang had no time to retract her intrinsic Dharma artifact. She could also see that Wang Daoyuan had nurtured the white tiger blade to the point where it could move according to his heart's desire. Even if she used her escape technique to dodge, the flying sword would still catch up to her and she would be in an even more passive position. She had no choice but to take out a third-grade inferior ice blue flying sword to meet the white tiger blade head-on. The white tiger blade arrived, but Zhao Qingshuang blocked it with her sword. How could an ordinary flying sword, especially one used in a hurry, block the white tiger blade? The tip of the white tiger blade stabbed the ice blue flying sword, directly cutting it in two. With the sword in her hand destroyed, the white tiger blade went straight for her throat. Zhao Qingshuang leaned back, wanting to dodge the attack. Perfected Ningxuang wanted to attack, but perfected Lei Yan released his aura to intimidate her. Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't dare to actually kill Zhao Qingshuang. He flicked his sword finger upwards, raising the white tiger blade as well. The blade brushed past her nose. Wang Daoyuan did his best to restrain his sword qi, and thus didn't leave a single wound on her face, only cutting off a few strands of her hair. Seeing that her disciple was safe and sound, perfected Ningxuang let out a sigh of relief. Qingshuang, come back. This kid has been through hundreds of battles. Even if you are stronger than him, you won't be able to defeat him. What's more, this kid's power is superior to most Middle Zifu disciples. Kid surnamed Wang, thank you for being merciful and sparing my disciple's life. The grudge between me and Lei Yan is now written off. Wang Daoyuan withdrew his magic artifact, then clasped his hands. Senior, you speak too seriously. We were just sparring, so naturally I wouldn't dare injure Zhao Daoyu. Zhao Qingshuang had just experienced life and death. She didn't have the courage to fight again. Dejected, she returned to perfected Ningxuang's side. Wang Daoyuan secretly sighed to himself. It was a pity that he hadn't been able to witness the music legacy of the Wind Snow Deity Palace. The celestial arcanum sex perfected sky diviner smiled. Rumor has it that the Guiyuan Sword Codex was created by an ancient powerhouse. However, the legacy is incomplete and doesn't have much power. However, martial nephew Dao Yuan's heaven-cleaving sword seems to be quite extraordinary. In the future, you might be able to learn the essence of the Guiyuan Sword Codex. Wang Daoyuan clasped his hands. Senior, you flatter me. He looked up and saw a youth standing beside the perfected sky diviner. He was also at the early Zifu realm and looked rather familiar. He probed, are you Daoyu Zhou Xian? The youth smiled. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. So it's Wu Daoyu. I wonder if you've safely survived your romantic calamity. Wang Daoyuan smiled. It really is Daoyu. Thanks to Daoyu's reminder, I made a lot of preparations and narrowly escaped death. The person who schemed against us back then was also killed by me. Perfected Sky Diviner asked, is martial nephew Daoyuan the Wu Daoyu you mentioned? Zhou Xian replied, Granduncle, that Wu Daoyu is indeed junior brother Wang. A purple light flashed in Perfected Sky Diviner's eyes as he revealed a shocked expression. Of course, he quickly covered it up. The others also didn't dare to stare at a golden core perfected master, so they didn't notice his abnormality. He nodded and said, Martial nephew Wang is indeed a talent. Before he finished speaking, Perfected Xianlei shouted, Brat Wang, you seem to be a sword cultivator too. I wonder if you can spar with my disciple. The black-clothed youth beside Perfected Xianlei stepped forward and clasped his hands. I'm Kuei Jian, Perfected Xuanlei's disciple. Junior brother Wang, please teach me a thing or two. Wang Daoyuan's expression turned serious. This person had a thunder attribute spirit energy fluctuation and also had the sword cultivation legacy of the Tai sword sect. A thunder attribute sword cultivator who had previously dealt with Lei Wudao, who was indeed difficult to deal with. The Tai sword sect's legacy was much stronger than that of the Cruel Sun Palace. This Kuei Jian was also valued by Perfected Xianlei. His battle strength of the same rank would not be weaker than Lei Wudao. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to speak, the cultivator wearing a 5-colored phoenix-patterned robe stepped forward and said with a smile, You guys are a bit of a bully. Daoyu just fought a battle and consumed a lot of spirit energy and divine sense. I can't stand to see injustice, so I'll fight fellow Daoist Kuei first. After that, you guys can spar. That's fair. Wang Daoyuan clasped his hands. Thank you for your kind intentions, Zhou Daoyu. However, I'm a Penta Spirit Veins cultivator and I'm least afraid of a battle of attrition. Then, he took out a jar of spirit peach dew and drank it in one gulp. My spirit energy has more or less recovered and I still have more than half of my divine sense left. Daoyu is a sword cultivator and I'm also a dabbler in sword cultivation. If the two of us fight, we won't consume much of our divine sense. At this moment, Perfected Xianlei gave Perfected Sky Glimpse a look. Perfected Sky Glimpse smiled. The talents of the Zhou clan have also appeared. It's really a gathering of geniuses. However, no matter how the three of them fight, it won't be fair. You go and spar with the prince of the Zhou clan first so that martial nephew Wang can rest for a while. Wang Daoyuan thought to himself that the archaic Arcanum sect was indeed a fortune-teller. They were really slippery in dealing with people. Letting Zhou Xian spar with the Zhou clan's royal descendants, he did not want to offend either the Tai sword sect or the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Chapter 405. No one had any objections. Wang Daoyuan retreated to the side of the field, and Wang Daoyin brought over a bottle of divine sense recovery pills. Wang Daoyuan ate the pills and meditated to recover his divine sense. The Zhou Nation royal disciple cupped his hands and said, Zhou Nation's Zhou Jingyuan greets Daoyu. As soon as he said that, there was a commotion. Zhou Jingyuan was not a nobody. He was the son of the current Emperor Zhou, and also his most talented son. No wonder he dared to meddle in the affairs of the four top forces. Although Zhou Nation's strength was inferior to the four top forces, the gap was not too big. The four top forces did not dare to underestimate Zhou Nation. Zhou Xian also returned the greeting. Archaic Mysteries Sect Xian Jiuxiao greets Daoyu. Both of them were disciples of major forces, and their etiquette was very considerate. After the greeting, Zhou Jingyuan was the first to attack. He waved his hand and shot out a few golden feathers. These golden feathers were similar to the feather blades in Wang Daoyuan's golden rock fighting dragon technique. Xian Jiuxiao condensed a ball of spirit energy in his hand, which turned into a few blue stars and hit the golden feathers. The feathers and the stars collided and disappeared. The two of them simply tested each other, and the spells they used were much more advanced than the meteor fall technique. After that, Zhou Jingyuan shot out a few metal-type spells. Xian Jiuxiao also dissolved them one by one. So far, Wang Daoyuan could not tell what attribute his spirit energy was. Every time Xian Jiuxiao used a spell, it was something related to the stars. His spirit energy was somewhat like the water attribute, but it was obviously different. The fortune tellers of the Archaic Mysteries sect really knew how to play tricks. The two of them had no enmity, and there was no need to determine the winner. It was just a simple spell competition, and they did not use high-level spells or artifacts. After 15 minutes of sparring, Wang Daoyuan's divine sense had completely recovered. Xian Jiuxiao and Zhou Jingyuan stopped sparring, and it ended in a draw. Zhou Jingyuan walked to Wang Daoyuan's side and smiled. "Fellow Daoist, you're a genius. If you can come to my Zhou country in the future, I'll definitely treat you as an honored guest." This was a blatant attempt to poach. Hall Master Gu's expression turned ugly. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Your Highness, I appreciate your kind intentions. However, I'm focused on cultivation, so I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint your Highness." Zhou Jingyuan said with a bit of regret, "With Daoyou's ability, his achievements won't be below that of venerable devil vanquishing in the future. With such a character, it wouldn't be difficult for him to establish his own sect. It was me who had overestimated myself." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Your Highness is too kind." After saying that, he walked to the center of the square. Kuei Jian also walked forward, and the two of them bowed to each other. This guy was a straightforward person. He immediately took out a blue long sword. Lightning flashed on the sword, and the engraving on the hilt was a Kuei cow. The Kuei ox looked like both an ox and a dragon. It was a divine beast that could control lightning. Its strength was not weaker than divine beasts like dragons and phoenixes. His intrinsic dermic artifact had a sculpture of the Kuei ox, so his Violet Palace phenomenon was most likely related to the Kuei ox. In this way, Wang Daoyuan wouldn't have any advantage in terms of intrinsic dermic artifact. Kuei Jian took the initiative to attack. His longsword floated in front of him, and with a flash of blue light, a longsword image flashed with lightning and slashed at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan also summoned the white tiger blade, which floated in front of him. Two sword rays flew out, slashing at Kuei Jian's longsword image. The two sword rays were broken, and the longsword image dissipated. Kuei Jian held the longsword with both hands and slashed at Wang Daoyu. This time, there was no sword ray or longsword image. Instead, a bolt of blue lightning flew out from the long sword. Wang Daoyuan immediately used the demon-resisting sword bell. Dozens of long sword phantoms formed a bell shape to protect him and take the lightning head-on. The demon-resisting sword bell's power was not bad. It withstood the lightning attack, and only 4 or 5 longsword images shattered. They could be restored at any time. Kuei Jian smiled, "Daoyou's strength is high. Small fights are meaningless. I'm going to use my strongest attack. Daoyu, be careful." Before he finished speaking, the spiritual energy on his body gathered on the long sword in his hand. The long sword in his hand let out clanging sword cries, which were mixed with thunder and beast roars. Purple light flickered between his brows, letting out the same sound. This was the resonance of the Violet Palace. The thunder and beast roars should have come from the Kuei ox. The Kuei ox definitely wasn't the only Kuei ox that could let out sword cries. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to be negligent. He poured a sea of spiritual energy and spiritual sense into the white tiger blade, holding the hilt with both hands. A tiger's roar resounded as the white tiger blade's power was released. A domineering, imposing, and dangerous aura was emitted. In terms of aura, the white tiger blade wasn't inferior to its opponent. However, Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to use the resonance of the Violet Palace. He had told Luo Jiuyo that his avatar was 5 quasi-divine beasts. Now that his Violet Palace avatar was resonating with the white tiger blade, it was clearly telling everyone that his Violet Palace avatar had a divine white tiger. At that time, it would be strange if Luo Jiuyo didn't make things difficult for him. He used the white tiger blade to execute the sky-cleaving sword. After condensing a 300-meter-long illusory sword, he compressed it to 20 meters long. Soon, a 20-meter-long illusory sword appeared in Kuei Jian's hand. It was exactly the same as his natal dermic artifact. This illusory sword should be Kuei Jian's natal dermic artifact. In that case, Kuei Jian's Violet Palace avatar should be exactly the same as his natal dermic artifact. It should also be a long sword with a Kuei ox carving. For a true sword cultivator like him, he had been cultivating sword arts since the Qi refinement stage. When he reached the foundation establishment stage, he would begin to refine the embryonic form of his natal dermic artifact and nurture it. Since they had interacted with swords from a young age, it was most likely for a longsword avatar to appear when they opened their Violet Palace. This longsword avatar was exactly the same as the natal dermic artifact itself and the natal dermic artifact's natal dermic artifact. The three could be combined into one. In Wang Daoyuan's situation, it could only be that his Violet Palace avatar was compatible with the natal dermic artifact's natal dermic artifact, but not with the dermic artifact itself. If the three couldn't be combined into one, the strength he could unleash would naturally be reduced. After all, he was a half-baked sword cultivator. Without early nurturing, he was destined to be a half-baked sword cultivator. If he could defeat a true sword cultivator just by casually cultivating some sword arts, then sword cultivation wouldn't be anything worth praising. To Wang Daoyuan, the path of sword cultivation was only a supplementary method. But to Kuei Jian, it was all his heart's work. It was normal that Wang Daoyuan couldn't compare to Kuei Jian on the path of sword cultivation. He didn't expect to rely on the white tiger blade to defeat Kuei Jian. After the two finished accumulating their spiritual power, they swung their long swords. As Wang Daoyuan expected, the sky-cleaving sword was directly chopped into two upon contact with Kuei Jian's longsword avatar. As for his longsword avatar, it only became much dimmer, and the speed at which it chopped down also became slightly slower. Wang Daoyuan immediately controlled the Xuanwu shield, creating an avatar of the Xuanwu to protect himself. His hands weren't idle either, and he began to use the Earth Divine Thunder. Long before coming to the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he had already converted all the spiritual power in his body. There was no special attribute at all. Using the Earth Divine Thunder, he wasn't afraid that others would discover the problem with his technique. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan's Earth Divine Thunder could be used 3 times in a breath. Its power was equivalent to 20 times that of a third-level low-grade sharpened metal divine sword talisman. Chapter 406. Hearing this, Kuei Jian was stunned. Ever since he was young, the elders of the sect had told him that the sword was the strongest in the world. He had never considered why one sword could break 10,000 techniques. Now, Wang Daoyuan's 10,000 arts break one sword made him somewhat at a loss. His face was ashen, and his eyes were dim. Wang Daoyuan was also a little scared. Sword cultivators believed that one sword could break 10,000 techniques, which was the unconventional path. Once this belief was shattered, they might feel as if the entire world was collapsing. At that time, their Dao heart might collapse. If they could walk out of it and rebuild their Dao heart, they would be even stronger in the future. If they couldn't walk out of it, their future cultivation would be completely hopeless. Therefore, those who walked the Dao of sword cultivators were either extremely talented and could really break 10,000 techniques with one sword. Or they were stubborn, unable to shake their belief no matter how hard they tried. Kuei Jian clearly belonged to the former, as he could really break 10,000 techniques with one sword. Now that he was defeated by Wang Daoyuan at the same cultivation level, it meant that the sword wasn't the strongest. He fell into self-doubt, and his Dao heart might collapse, and he would no longer believe in the Dao of sword cultivators. Kuei Jian was also a top figure among his peers in Beiyuan Shoshin. If he was crippled because of his words, then he would really have a death feud with the Tai sword sect. Sure enough, when Daoist Xianlei saw Kuei Jian's state, he shouted angrily, "Brat Wang, if my disciple's Dao heart collapses, I'll fight you to the death." Hearing this, Daoist Lei Yan was unhappy. "My disciple is speaking the truth." You guys always shout that one sword can break 10,000 techniques. Why don't you use your sword to break this old man's lightning technique? Daoist Xianlei wasn't Daoist Lei Yan's opponent, and they were in the Divine Weapon Pavilion's territory. If things got out of hand, he would be the one to suffer. He didn't speak anymore, only glaring at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. There are too many people here. Why don't we find a secluded place and I'll enlighten Daoyu? Daoist Lei Yan said, follow me. Wang Daoyuan and his brother followed Reverend Thunderflame. Reverend Profound Thunder also brought the Kuei sword and followed behind. The few of them arrived at a quiet little house. Spiritual Master Lei Yan said, this is the house where the disciples of my Divine Weapon Pavilion are confined. No matter what is said here, no one outside can hear. Reverend Profound Thunder nodded and said, Brat surnamed Wang, what do you have to say now? Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, Senior Xianlei, my understanding of sword cultivation is that I first believe that the sword is the strongest in the world. One sword can break all the skills and all living things in the world. When the natal Dharma artifact was nurtured to the point of becoming one with the sword cultivator would change from believing that the sword was the strongest to believing that he was the strongest in the world. The belief that a sword cultivator could break all laws with a single sword was merely paving the way for their own invincibility. I wondered if I'm right? Daoist Profound Thunder nodded and said, that's indeed the case. It was only when I reached the early Golden Core stage and became one with the sword that I comprehended the sword cultivator's belief in the sword. It was to pave the way for my own invincibility. It is indeed rare for a half-baked sword cultivator like you to be able to comprehend the Tao. However, it is easy to say, but difficult to do. When you have just stepped onto the path of cultivation, even Qi refinement cultivators can easily kill you. Surrounded by people stronger than you, how can you believe that you are invincible? Sword cultivators use the sword as a carrier. From believing that the sword is invincible, they gradually cultivate the belief that they are invincible. This is a necessary process. Who can always firmly believe that they are the strongest? Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, I can. Daoist Profound Thunder had a look of disbelief. Only those who had comprehended the belief of invincibility would know how difficult this path was to walk. Even Golden Core cultivators, or even half-step Yuanian cultivators, would never be able to believe that they were invincible in their entire lives. This was also the most fundamental reason why sword cultivators were so powerful. Because sword cultivators used the sword as a carrier, it was easier to cultivate the belief of invincibility. And the belief of invincibility might be more important than powerful spells and inheritances. Daoist Profound Thunder had a look of disbelief. You have never encountered an opponent that you could not defeat and have never run away? Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, I have, and many times. If I can't beat them, I will run. If I can't escape, I will admit defeat and pretend to be a coward. If my strength is inferior, will I just throw away my life? When my cultivation catches up, I will take revenge. As long as I kill them all, I will still be invincible. Daoist Master Profound Thunder shot him a glance and said, I've finally seen through you. You're a pain in the neck, a two-faced man, and a two-faced man with conviction. Sigh. If only I had discovered you earlier and accepted you as my disciple. An invincible belief that cannot be defeated is most suitable for the path of sword cultivators. Unfortunately, your Purple Mansion phenomenon is not a sword. If you walk the path of sword cultivators, you will never reach the peak. When Kuei Jian heard Wang Daoyuan's words, there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. He asked, Daoyu, can you tell me about your experience of running away? Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, when I was at the 7th level of Qi refinement, I traveled to the Green Willow province of the Sky/Mountain Range. When I was picking spirit herbs, I was chased by a pack of black cloud wolves. I ran for hundreds of miles in the Sky/Mountain Range and finally jumped off a cliff to save my life. When my cultivation reached the 9th level of Qi refinement, I went to find the pack of black cloud wolves when I was free and beat the Wolf King until he ran away like a rat. After a few years of torment, the Wolf King could not bear the humiliation and gave up the territory with the wolf pack. With Wang Daoyuan's current cultivation and his identity as Daoist Lei Yan's disciple, it did not matter if things that could not be exposed in the past were exposed. For example, the myriad spirits sect could not say anything about the soul-chasing bees. Wang Daoyuan often went in and out of the sky/mountain range, so it was not impossible for him to find the soul-chasing bees. Even if the myriad spirits sect had their suspicions, they did not dare to act rashly. The Wang family was no longer a small family that could be exterminated at will. Daoist Profound Thunder said with disdain, "What are you doing? Even the black cloud wolves that are loyal to their territory were bullied away by you." At this moment, Kuei Jian's eyes also had some vigor. He looked at Wang Daoyuan and said solemnly, "Then I'll treat you as the black cloud wolf that chased after me. Sooner or later, I'll be able to defeat you too. Although I can't believe that I'm invincible now, I'll definitely be able to do it in the future. Master, I'm going out to train and rely on myself to fight for the belief of being invincible." Daoist Profound Thunder revealed a smile. Kuei Jian had walked out of defeat and was no longer in danger of his Dao heart collapsing. In time, with the belief of being invincible, his strength would also improve by leaps and bounds. Wang Daoyuan also heaved a sigh of relief. If a golden core of the Tai Sword sect bore a grudge against them, the Wang family would have a hard time in the future. Daoist Profound Thunder patted Wang Daoyuan's shoulder and said, "You help Kuei Jian protect his Dao heart. With his talent, he'll soon be able to believe that he's invincible. This belief of being invincible took me hundreds of years, but you helped Kuei Jian save hundreds of years. I've never owed anyone favors. Your natal magic weapon should be the inheritance of Daoist subduing demon. I have a material that's quite suitable for you, but it's useless to keep it. Just treat it as returning your favor." With that said, he took out an earthy yellow stone the size of a baby's fist and handed it to Wang Daoyuan. This stone did not have any spirit energy fluctuations and felt like an ordinary stone. Chapter 407. Lei Yan said helplessly, "Your Tai Sword sect is really convenient. Everyone in the sect is one-track minded. After the sect members die in battle, there are still people to take care of the family. Our Divine Weapon Pavilion's people are too complicated. After I die, without a gold core disciple, we might not even be able to keep the inheritance. Dao Yuan is cunning and has the potential to form a gold core. After I die, he will be the one to hold up the sect." Daoist Xianlei also sighed and said, "Tai Sword sect is also not a harmonious group. Every family has its own problems. Kuei Jian's matter is settled, I will not disturb you any longer. Goodbye." The group left the small house and came to the square where the battle took place. Everyone was still waiting to watch the show. However, they saw that the two groups were harmonious and Kuei Jian's expression was not as dejected as before. They knew that the matter was settled. Since the show was over, everyone bid farewell and left. Xian Jiuxiao also came to greet Wang Daoyuan. "Daoyu, come to Archaic Arcanum sect when you are free. I will check if there are any more love affairs." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "If I have the chance, I will definitely visit." After everyone left, Wang Daoyuan went to send Palace Master Gu off. "Palace Master, I will be staying in the Divine Weapon Pavilion for a while to practice the art of refining tools. I can't go back with you. Please tell the sect master not to blame me." Palace Master Gu waved his hand and said, "Since you are Daoist Lei Yan's disciple, it is normal for you to stay here for a while. How can the sect master blame you?" After sending Palace Master Gu off, Wang Daoyuan returned to Daoist Lei Yan's cave. After entering the cave, Daoist Thunderflame took out a fist-sized heaven-suppressing stone and handed it to him. "That old man Xian Lei gave you a heaven-suppressing stone. I just remembered that I found one a long time ago. Unfortunately, I am of the lightning attribute and this thing is useless to me. The heaven-suppressing stone that Xian Lei gave you is still not enough to refine the Kirin seal. This one should be enough. I don't have anything good to give you, so this heaven-suppressing stone is a greeting gift. As for the earth essence, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just too rare. It's already not bad to be able to produce even one every few thousand years. Wang Daoyuan was not in a hurry to find the earth essence. After all, the heaven-suppressing stone was a Tier 4 material. With Wang Daoyuan's current ability, he was completely powerless. In order to forge a Kirin seal, one had to be at least at the late-stage Zifu disciple level, and one had to be at least at the low-grade 4th tier in artifact forging. Speaking of his natal Dharma artifact, he remembered that Zhou Wan had once warned him that Luo Jiuyo was not a good person and might leave some dirty tricks on his natal Dharma artifact. He had always wanted to find someone to take a look and see if there was any problem. However, Venerable Devil Vanquishing Demon's inheritance had passed through Luo Jiuyo's hands. The person who could see the problem must be a Jindan stage cultivator or a 4th tier weapon refiner, and must be a reliable person. Such a person was hard to come by, and Daoist Thunderflame was the best candidate. Wang Daoyuan received the heaven suppression stone and bowed. Many thanks, Master. Master, I obtained Daoist Devil Vanquishing's inheritance from Luo Jiuyo of the Netherworld sect. That person is very scheming, and I'm worried that he might do something to the inheritance. Disciple's talent is shallow, and I can't see any problems. I need to find a Jindan stage cultivator who is proficient in artifact forging to take a look, and they must be reliable. The only one I can think of is you. With that said, he took out a jade slip and a beast skin book given to him by Luo Jiuyo and gave it to Daoist Thunderflame. He had exchanged the jade slip with the golden ping seizing dragon art after participating in the duel between the two sections. The beast skin book was a reward from Luo Jiuyo for assisting Wuxia Pass. Daoist Thunderflame smiled. As expected, you're very cautious about everything. But that's fine. Those old geezers of the Netherworld sect are very treacherous. If you don't keep your guard up when dealing with them, you'll be easily tricked. Daoist Devil Vanquishing's inheritance is very famous, and many people have heard of it, but only a few have seen it. Even I haven't seen it before. However, if Luo Jiuyo had left something behind, I'll definitely be able to see it. With that said, he began to read the contents of the Beast Skin book. The Beast Skin book recorded the refinement method of the magic tool, as well as some of the accompanying spells. After reading for a while, Daoist Thunderflame said, "There's nothing wrong with the contents recorded in the Beast Skin book. Luo Jiuyo doesn't understand artifact forging, nor does he have the ability to alter the refinement method. This is a good thing. So far, the parts you've cultivated are still correct. You don't need to refine the magic tool again, which saves you a lot of effort." He picked up the jade slip again and carefully read its contents. 4 hours later, he frowned. There's nothing wrong with these spells. They're all part of the 5 elements Devil Vanquishing Seal's supplementary spells. The only problem is how to combine the 5 magic tools into the 5 elements Devil Vanquishing Seal. This combination method seems to have been modified. However, I'm still unable to determine where the problem lies. Show it to me. Wang Daoyuan nodded. I first obtained this combination spell, and then the refinement method. Previously, I saw that the combination spell was too weak, so I only cultivated the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal my injuries. Later, with the refinement method, I refined the White Tiger Blade and the Black Tortoise Shield. I also cultivated these 2 spells. There's still the Kirin Seal and the Vermilion Bird Fan that I haven't cultivated yet. Give me 5 days, I'll cultivate them. Daoist Thunderflame found it hard to believe, but he didn't say anything. In the following time, Daoist Thunderflame continued to taste the various delicacies that Wang Daoshu brought over, and teased Wang Mingting. Wang Daoyuan was diligently cultivating the 2 spells, as well as the key to the 5 elements Devil Vanquishing Seal. 5 days later, the illusory images of 5 life-bound magic tools floated above Wang Daoyuan's head. The Kirin Seal was in the middle, and the other 4 magic tools were in the 4 corners. Wang Daoyuan used the combination spell, but the Kirin Seal remained unmoved. The other 4 illusory images turned into 4 streaks of light and merged into the Kirin seal. There weren't any obvious changes to the Kirin seal. The seal button was still a relief of the Kirin, but on the 4 sides of the seal, there were patterns of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Daoist Thunderflame was eating and drinking when he sensed the power of the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal. He immediately walked over to Wang Daoyuan and exclaimed, "This is amazing. I've never seen someone with such powerful perception. You can condense the Kirin seal and the vermilion bird fan in 5 days, and even combine them into the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal. That's 3 spells in 5 days. Daoyuan, tell me the truth, are you an acquired 5 elements spiritual body?" Ever since he established his violet palace, the wisp of light from the spiritual bead had fused into his soul. He didn't feel anything at first, but as time passed, he realized that his perception was slowly increasing. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense was powerful, so it wasn't strenuous for him to maintain the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal. He smiled and said, "It should be. When I was young, my cultivation speed was comparable to a heavenly spiritual root, but it got slower and slower. But I feel that cultivating spells, alchemy, artifact, and array is very simple." Daoist Thunderflame nodded and said, "Then that's right. The acquired 5 elements spiritual body has a limited effect on cultivation speed, but it has a huge impact on perception. I've really picked up a treasure. Dao Yin, Zhao Liang, come over and help me." The 2 quickly walked over from their respective caves. Daoist Thunderflame instructed, "Dao Yin, use your strongest spell to attack Daoyuan's 5 elements devil vanquishing seal." Wang Daoyin had great trust in his master and big brother, so he immediately condensed a ball of purple flames in his hand. There were also flashes of lightning within the flames. This should be a spell that Daoist Thunderflame created with the help of his violet palace. Wang Daoyin waved his hand and a fist-sized ball of purple flames flew towards the seal. When the flames collided with the seal, the flames turned into sparks that filled the sky, but the seal only became much dimmer. Daoist Thunderflame had been observing the seal with his spiritual sense. "I can see the problem. There's a flaw in the seal's combination method. Luo Jiuyo must have done something to the combination method." Chapter 408. Daoist Lei Yen sent his divine sense into the seal image and said, "Dao Yuan, reduce the spiritual energy in the seal image to the lowest level. It'll be fine as long as you can barely maintain the image." Wang Daoyuan extracted most of the spiritual energy from the seal image until it was barely enough to maintain the image. Daoist Lei Yen looked at the extremely dim seal image and nodded, "Liang, you do it. Use whatever spell you want to attack Kirin's forehead. It doesn't need to be very powerful. It'll be fine as long as it has the power of a low-grade second-level talisman." Zhao Liang had absolute trust in Daoist Lei Yen. Without saying anything, he condensed a small fiery red sword in his hand. With a wave of his hand, the small sword flew out and hit Kirin's forehead. The seal image had no power to resist this small fiery red sword. The small sword directly pierced through Kirin's seal, and the entire seal image instantly collapsed. Wang Daoyuan felt spiritual energy enter his body in reverse. Although it was quickly suppressed, his meridians were still in pain. Fortunately, Daoist Lei Yen told him to extract most of the spiritual energy from the seal image. Otherwise, if the spiritual energy were to flow in reverse, his meridians and dantian would be severely damaged. Daoist Lei Yen said angrily, "Luo Jiuyo is so vicious. I really underestimated his ability." Just now, when Dao Yuan attacked the seal image, the spiritual energy in Kirin's forehead circulated abnormally. "I thought that Luo Jiuyo had only done something to use it against you. I didn't think that he would be able to hide such a vicious trick in his fusion technique. It could actually cause spiritual energy to flow in reverse. If you had refined the 5 natal magic tools and condensed the true 5 elements devil suppression seal, when you fought with Luo Jiuyo, He only needed to casually use a third-level spell to hit Kiran's forehead and the seal would instantly collapse. With the 5 magic tools, it wouldn't be as simple as the spiritual energy flowing in reverse. The 5 magic tools would very likely go out of control and forcefully enter your dantian or sea of consciousness. At that time, you would have no hope of survival. Fortunately, you were smart enough to let me help you see if there was any problem. Otherwise, who knows when I'll be screwed over by him in the future. Wang Daoyuan was also scared. His vigilance was still too low. Fortunately, Zhou Wan reminded him. Otherwise, he would really fall into Luo Jiuyo's trap. He used to think that the reason why the Netherworld sect suppressed the old family was that the external forces wanted to destroy the old family and influence the decision of the higher-ups. Now, it seemed that the local branch of the Netherworld sect was not a good person either. Wang Daoyuan originally thought that now that the 3 sects of the state of Zhao were no longer fighting and the situation was stable, the Wang family could develop in peace. Now, it seemed that the strategy of a crafty rabbit having 3 burrows was far from enough. He still needed to increase his power as quickly as possible and reach the late Zifu stage. Go find the old path that the 10,000 corpse Daoist master used to cross the heaven/mountain range and open up the 3rd cave. The most important thing now was to solve the problem of the 5 elements devil suppression seal. He asked Lei Yanjinren, Master, can the flaws in this combination technique be fixed? Daoist Thunderflame replied with a smile, if it were someone else, it would be really hard to repair without a few decades. But for me, it wasn't that difficult. Back then, Daoist devil suppression was in the southern wasteland, suppressing the rebellion of the demonic cultivators. Whenever he obtained good materials, he would bring them to the treasured Cauldron Mountain to exchange for magic tools, pills, talismans, and so on. Over time, he became good friends with several seniors of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Among these seniors was our sect's founder, Daoist Thunderlight. Back then, Daoist Devil Suppression wanted to refine 5 lifebound magic tools and combine them to unleash an extremely strong power. He himself was not good at refining, so it was impossible for him to create a set of combined magic tools. But Daoist Thunderlight was a 5th-rank blacksmith and was also a famous gentleman. Thus, he asked Daoist Thunderlight for help. This combination technique of the 5 elements magic tools was completed under Daoist Thunderlight's guidance. Daoist Thunderlight was a benevolent person and did not leave behind a copy of the combination technique. But in his own refining experience, he mentioned the principle of the combination technique. With Daoist Thunderlight's experience and this problematic combination technique, give me 1 or 2 years, and I will be able to deduce the complete secret technique. Even if it is different from the original version, the overall function will not be too different. It shouldn't be a problem for you to stay with me for 2 years, right? Wang Daoyuan smiled apologetically. What are you saying, Master? It is my duty to serve you. 5th granduncle and 12th uncle are taking care of the family. Not returning for more than 10 years is not a big deal. But there is one thing I want to ask Master for help with. Daoist Thunderflame also had a forthright personality. I don't like this about you. You don't speak or do things straightforwardly. Since I accepted you as my disciple, I naturally have to help you solve your problem. If you have something to ask, just say it. There is no need to talk about begging. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. Then this disciple will say it directly. I want Master to help me modify the Vermilion Bird Fan. Among the 5 magic tools, the White Tiger Blade is for offense, the Black Tortoise Shield is for defense, the Azure Dragon Pearl is for healing, and the Kirin Seal is for suppression. But the Vermilion Bird Fan's function is too simple. It can only control fire attribute spiritual fire, and its lethality is not much. I want you to help me modify the Vermilion Bird Fan so that it can control the 5 elemental spiritual fire. Daoist Thunderflame thought for a while and said, Daoyin and Liang, leave first. I have a secret matter to discuss with Daoyuan that cannot be easily revealed. The matter of me finding the flaw in the 5 elemental devil suppression seal must not be known to anyone else. Otherwise, if it reaches Luo Jiuyo's ears, it will be detrimental to Daoyuan and the Wang family. Wang Daoyin and Zhao Liang cupped their hands and said yes, then left the cave. Daoist Thunderflame released his spiritual sense. The door to the cave closed, and the soundproofing ceiling formations were activated. Afterwards, he smiled. When I first met you, I discovered that your spiritual power had a special attribute. It is not uncommon for spiritual power to have special attributes, but your spiritual power at that time had two different special attributes. This time, you want to modify the vermilion bird fan to control the 5 elemental spiritual fire. The special attribute in your spiritual power might be caused by refining spiritual fire. You don't need to be afraid. I am a lightning attribute cultivator, and the 5 elemental spiritual fire is useless to me. If you can refine the 5 elemental spiritual fire, your cultivation speed will greatly increase, and you might be able to form a golden core in less than 100 years. What other spiritual fire do you lack? Let me see if I can help. Wang Daoyuan smiled helplessly. I thought I hid it well, but I still couldn't hide it from you. I already have 3 spiritual fires, and I still lack metal and fire attribute spiritual fires. Daoist Thunderflame said, I do have a few fire attribute spiritual fires, but they all have owners. If you really can't find them, you can go find the cave residences of ancient cultivators who play with fire, or kill some special fire attribute demonic beasts. Maybe you can obtain a spiritual fire. Metal attribute spiritual fires are relatively rare, and only exist in high-grade metal attribute spiritual veins and metal mines. Unfortunately, the spiritual fire I cultivated with the help of a small divine ability is lightning attribute, so it won't be of much help to you. I'll leave it for Daoyin in the future. I'm not in a hurry to find spiritual fires, so I'll first help you solve the problem of the 5 elemental devil subduing seal. The vermilion bird is the strongest fire attribute divine bird, and can be said to be the ancestor of fire. It has the ability to control all flames. If it can only control fire attribute spiritual fires, wouldn't it be inferior to the divine bird by Fang? It's just that the vermilion bird fan isn't complete enough, so it can only control fire attribute spiritual fires. After I modify it, it won't be difficult to control the 5 elemental spiritual fire, and it can also complement the heaven-burning divine fire. It's just that the vermilion bird visualization diagram recorded in the original refining method can no longer be used. You have the vermilion bird in your Zifu anomaly, so you don't need the vermilion bird visualization diagram, so it won't affect you much. Modifying the vermilion bird fan, in addition to the secret restoration method, will only take about 3 years. It's a piece of cake. In these 3 years, you'll be my assistant, and I can also pass on the deduction method of the natal magic artifact to you. The 5 elemental devil subduing seal has great potential, so you have to work hard to unlock its potential. Chapter 409. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. Yes, master. Lei Yan smiled. You don't have to be so reserved. Go to the innermost part of the cave and take a look at the refining methods of the ancestors. When I'm done modifying the vermilion bird fan, you can try to refine it and see if the modification is correct. What I have here are all things that belong to our lineage. You can take a look if you want. The divine weapon pavilion master can't do anything about it. Wang Daoyuan bowed and walked towards the innermost part of the cave. As a peak golden core cultivator and an upper tier 4th grade blacksmith, Lei Yan's cave was naturally not bad. The cave was divided into 4 parts. The front part was for receiving guests, the back part was for cultivating, the back part was for refining, and the innermost part was the stone room where the ancient books were kept. Wang Daoyuan went straight to the stone room where the ancient books were kept. It wasn't big and was only 30 feet wide. In the entire stone room, there were 3 bookshelves. On each of them were the insights of the previous generations of grandmasters regarding the refinement of magic tools, various patterns of tools, and specific methods of refining magic tools. For an artificer, it was only when they were advancing that they needed the insights of their seniors the most. At other times, the most important thing was the runes. When one understood more tool patterns and needed to modify Dharma artifacts or create new Dharma artifacts, one only needed to use the ready-made tool patterns. As for the stability of the artifact, it would have to be improved slowly. Wang Daoyuan's first goal was naturally the runes. In fact, the order wasn't important. In this stone room, there were more than 1,000 beast-skin books in addition to the refining methods of the artifacts. There were less than 100 books with runes and insights. He had always lacked a profound refining legacy. Now that he had the opportunity, he would not give up until he memorized all the books in the library. But it was a pity that it was troublesome to copy the runes. Not only did he have to copy the runes, he also had to copy the runes. If he wasn't a blacksmith, he wouldn't be able to copy them. His clone, Li Qingxuan, couldn't help, so he could only do it himself. Lei Yan, who was meditating in the guest room, smiled when he saw Wang Daoyuan drooling. He continued to think about modifying the vermilion bird fan. Half a year later, Wang Daoyuan had made a copy of the tool inscriptions and the insights of all the ancestors. As for the refining methods of those magic tools, he could only take his time. There were too many things to pay attention to when it came to the refining method of an immortal artifact. Other than the basic refining method, there were also the flaws and ways to improve the immortal artifact. Refining a slightly more difficult magic tool would require several pages of beast skin to record. In any case, he did not plan to leave the Divine Weapon Pavilion too early. The spirit vein of the treasured Cauldron Mountain was still non-elemental, which was very suitable for his cultivation. It would not be a problem for him to stay here for 10 to 20 years. At this time, Daoist Thunderflame had also completed the initial improvements to the vermilion bird fan. He shouted to Wang Daoyuan, "Daoyuan, cut down a few third-tier mid-grade branches from the blood fire hibiscus at the entrance. The improvement of the vermilion bird fan is almost complete. Let's try refining it first." Wang Daoyuan ran to the guest room and said with some difficulty, "Master, after all, I have not joined the Divine Weapon Pavilion. It's not appropriate for me to cut down the spirit wood here, right?" Daoist Lei Yan had an indifferent expression. "This blood fire hibiscus was planted by our ancestor and is the private property of our lineage. The underground fire vein connected to the roots of the tree was also brought here by our ancestral master. Not only did it not consume any of the treasured Cauldron Mountain's spiritual energy, it also continuously emitted a dense fire spiritual energy. As long as I have no objections, even if you dig it up by the roots, no one will dare to say anything." This time, Wang Daoyuan was relieved. When he left in the future, he could cut down a tender branch and plant it in the space of the spirit pearl to see if it could survive. Leaving the cave, he rode the kite and flew to the treetops of the blood fire hibiscus. The tender branches that had just grown out of the treetops were third-tier low-grade spiritual trees. Wang Daoyuan chose a branch that was as thick as an adult's arm and used the white tiger blade to cut it, but it was only cut in half. At the wound of the branch, a dense fire attribute spiritual energy was emitted. Although the white tiger blade was only third-tier low-grade, its material was excellent and he had also comprehended the white tiger sword intent. Even a third-tier high-grade spiritual tree could not withstand a single strike. The strength of this blood fire hibiscus was really not ordinary. He then used the white tiger blade to chop off the branch. A fire attribute spiritual energy surged out of the wound. Wang Daoyuan was several feet away from the wound and he felt a bit hot. Just as he did not know what to do, Daoist Lei Yan's voice sounded, "Don't worry about the wound, it will grow back by itself." Wang Daoyuan was relieved. Carrying the cut branch, he entered the cave. He asked Daoist Lei Yan, "Master, I see that this blood fire hibiscus is extremely extraordinary. Its name also has the word hibiscus. What is its relationship with the legendary divine tree hibiscus?" Daoist Lei Yan smiled. "This thing has grown here for 20 to 30,000 years and has always been like this. The legendary hibiscus is a tree root that grows two trunks that support each other, hence the name hibiscus. This thing does not look like hibiscus. In the past 20,000 years, it has never produced mulberries. There are rumors that this blood fire hibiscus evolved from hibiscus. However, without the nourishment of the sun true fire of the golden crow, it became like this. The golden crow has not appeared in the world for tens of thousands of years. Even demon birds with the golden crow bloodline are rare. Where can we find the sun true fire? This thing is not bad for refining. Furthermore, its grade has been slowly increasing. Just let it grow. But the flying magic tool you just used, I have never seen it before. What is it? When a refiner sees a magic tool they have never seen before, they will always have a strong curiosity. Wang Daoyuan took out the flying kite and answered, "This is something I modified from the crane feather boat. There are still many problems. I asked Senior Zhao Liang to help me modify it before. Now, it can fly over 4,000 miles in 2 hours. When it reaches 4,100 miles, it will violently tremble." Daoist Lei Yan took the flying kite and observed it carefully. This flying kite is rather interesting. I will help you modify it and refine it into a third-tier magic tool. This is my modified refining method for the vermilion bird fan. Try refining it into a normal magic tool and see how it is. After he finished speaking, he handed a jade slip to Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan took the jade slip and took it to the refining room at the back to try refining the vermilion bird fan. From the insights of the ancestors, he knew that refining a natal magic tool could be done by refining a normal magic tool. Even if it failed, there would not be much loss. The difference between a normal magic tool and a natal magic tool lies in the materials used, the method of inscribing the tool pattern, and whether or not it could be nurtured. The tool pattern itself has no difference. Using inferior materials to refine a normal magic tool. Although a normal magic tool refined this way is not as powerful as a natal magic tool, it does not have the ability to grow continuously. However, it still has the basic functions of a natal magic tool. It is very suitable to test if the refining method is reasonable. This method is very common, but in the records left behind by the Wang family ancestor, there is no mention of this method. Wang Daoyuan also asked Daoist Lei Yan. In the end, Daoist Lei Yan said angrily, "Your family ancestor is a complete brute, but fortune favors fools. Cultivation relies on brute force. From chi refinement to golden core, it was all done by brute force. He never used any supplementary spiritual items, and he still succeeded. Modifying a dharma spell also relies on brute force. Refining a natal magic tool also relies on brute force." His profound dragon sea-flipping sword was forcefully comprehended by looking at the refining methods of a few natal magic tools. He did not modify it at all, but its power is not weak. There were a few cultivators with heavenly spirit roots in the same era, but none of them can compare to him. Out of all the people I've seen, only you have the same level of comprehension as him. I suspect that he also has a postnatal spiritual body. Unfortunately, he has been dead for more than 400 years, so there is no way to verify it. Chapter 410. After learning about the glorious deeds of his patriarch, Wang Daoyuan felt that it was a pity. It was a pity that he had such great talent. Back then, if his patriarch had properly cultivated the 4 paths of elixir, smithing, and talisman formations, he could have left behind a legacy for the family. After his death in battle, the Wang family would not have fallen to the point where they had to sell their ancestral properties to survive. Later on, he could have saved a lot of effort to revitalize the family. He brought the jade scroll to perfected being Lei Yan's weapon refinement room. There were plenty of materials to refine weapons and there were also many feathers of grade 3 demonic beasts. However, there were no natal tail feathers. Ordinary grade 3 demonic beasts did not have natal tail feathers. Demonic beasts that could grow natal tail feathers definitely had the bloodline of high-tiered demonic beasts. The natal tail feathers were equivalent to the second inner core of a demonic beast and contained a large amount of its blood chi and spirit energy. Through the natal tail feathers, it could unleash innate skills similar to high-tiered demonic beasts. A single natal tail feather required 100 years of the demonic beast's time to grow. Demonic beasts would constantly nurture their natal tail feathers, and the longer they nurtured them, the stronger the power of the natal tail feather would be. Furthermore, once the natal tail feather fell off from the demonic beast, the essence within would begin to dissipate. If one wanted to preserve it for a long time, they would have to pay a high price. Therefore, weapon refinement masters would try their best to refine dermic weapons after obtaining the natal tail feather. It was extremely difficult to find stocks of this item. However, with the refinement method of the vermilion bird fan, there was no need to use the natal tail feather to refine ordinary dermic weapons. Ordinary grade 3 demonic beast feathers would suffice. A section of the blood fire hibiscus branch was cut off to refine into the handle of the vermilion bird fan, and 5 ordinary feathers of grade 3 demonic beasts were used to refine the fan face. Initially, the feathers of the 5 grade 3 demonic beasts were all of the fire element. But now, in order to control the 5 elemental spirit fires, the materials of the feathers had to be changed as well. The 5 feathers belonged to the 5 elements respectively. The most important feather in the middle had to be of the fire element. The natal tail feather was expensive and not easy to preserve. Therefore, there were no stocks of it. Ordinary feathers did not cost much to preserve. Perfected being Lei Yan's weapon refinement room had quite a number of them of all the 5 elements. There weren't many changes to the tool pattern. The basic tool pattern was the same whether one controlled multiple types of flames or one type of flame. By making some modifications to the original foundation, one could control the 5 elements spiritual fire. Wang Daoyuan's current tool refining technique was only at the 3rd tier lower grade, and he could only refine the 3rd tier lower grade vermilion bird fan. After failing once, he succeeded on his 2nd try. After the magic tool recognized him as its master, he used the vermilion bird fan's additional magic, the vermilion bird fire control technique. A fiery red vermilion bird phantom with a wingspan of about 100 feet flew out. At the same time, it cast a fireball technique. With his current cultivation base, the might of a first-order fireball was comparable to a second-order mid-grade offensive talisman. Under the control of the vermilion bird's shadow, the fireball's power was instantly doubled, and it was even slightly stronger than a stage 2 high-grade offensive talisman. Controlling fire was not a problem at all, but whether or not he could control other types of spiritual fire, he still needed to try it out. His 3 spiritual flames were all stored in the space within the spiritual pearl. Under the eyes of Daoist Lei Yan, a peak Jindan stage cultivator, he didn't dare to rashly take things from the spiritual pearl. It would be more appropriate to let little brother help. His purple thunder divine fire was pretty good. Wang Daoyuan came to the refining room and condensed a ball of thunder fire according to Wang Daoyuan's instructions. Wang Daoyuan activated the vermilion bird fan, and a vermilion bird phantom flew out, controlling the thunder fire. The fireball instantly doubled in size, and purple lightning flickered within it. It seemed that its power had more than doubled. Since the vermilion bird fan was useful for thunder-type flames, the 5 elements spiritual fire was naturally not a problem. Daoist Lei Yan's modification of the vermilion bird fan was very successful. It already had the ability to control and increase the power of spiritual fire. The materials used to refine the Lifebound magic tool were even better. The Lifebound magic tool could also gradually become stronger through nourishment, and its power would definitely far surpass that of this ordinary magic tool. There was also the heaven-burning divine fire technique, which could be combined with the power of the vermilion bird fan. After refining the vermilion bird fan and using it with spiritual fire, it would not be impossible for it to injure a late Sifu stage cultivator. Daoist Lei Yan used his spiritual sense to observe the effects of the modification of the vermilion bird fan. He said to Wang Daoyuan, using inferior refining materials and having no form or spirit, it's already not bad to have this kind of power. If you were to refine it into a life-bound magic tool, its power would be much greater. In the future, how much the vermilion bird fan can grow will be up to you. The modification of the vermilion bird fan can be considered complete. With the modification of the vermilion bird fan, the secret technique of the 5 elements devil smiting seal will also need to be modified. You can continue to study the records left behind by the patriarchs. I need to continue to analyze the secret technique and don't have time to teach you step by step. If there's anything you don't understand, come ask me. Wang Daoyuan bowed in acknowledgement, then returned to the library and continued to copy down the forging methods of those magic tools. If he were to copy down all of these forging methods, it would take him 10 or 20 years to do so. Not all of these magic tools were what Wang Daoyuan needed, so there was no need to copy them all down. Before copying them down, he had to first categorize the forging methods of these magic tools. He had to select the ones with relatively high prices, those with great power, and those that could be quickly used. For example, he had to select some of the high-level magic tools that could be refined using the profound origin gourd. Naturally, he couldn't miss out on the forging methods of 4th grade and 5th grade magic tools. There was also no need to copy down ordinary offensive and defensive magic tools, as well as magic tools that weren't too valuable. In the end, he picked out more than 200 forging methods of magic tools. These magic tools were relatively high in value, and their forging methods were also extremely complicated. After 3 years, he finally finished copying down all of the magic tools that he had picked out. Perfected Thunderflame had also finished deducing the combination technique and shouted, "Dao Yuan, I've finished deducing the 5 elements devil smiting seal. You can try cultivating it and see if there's anything lacking." Wang Daoyuan immediately walked out of the library and came before Perfected Thunderflame. Perfected Thunderflame smiled and asked, "You've comprehended the forging experiences left behind by the patriarchs. Is there anything you don't understand?" Wang Daoyuan had been copying the records for the past 3 years and hadn't comprehended anything at all. He replied awkwardly, "I've only been copying the records for the past few years and haven't started comprehending them yet. Please forgive me, Master." Perfected Thunderflame smiled and said, "It's fine. Copying is also a method of cultivation. My comprehension is far inferior to yours. When I was young, I learned forging from your grandmaster and often didn't understand things. Your grandmaster often punished me by copying down things I didn't understand. After copying a lot, I naturally understood. However, you and Dao Yin aren't like brothers. Dao Yin is an honest child who never wants things that aren't given to him. You, on the other hand, are the opposite. Whenever you have the opportunity, you'll take advantage of it. It's no wonder that you, a penta-spiritual roots cultivator, were able to establish the Violet Palace realm before the age of 120, and even forged 2 natal magic tools. You've also managed the Wang clan from a foundation establishment clan to its current state. Perhaps, people like you are more suitable to survive in this world of cultivators where danger lurks everywhere. The forging techniques left behind by the patriarchs still need you to carry forward, so it doesn't matter if you copy them down. You just have to remember not to bite off more than you can chew. Don't be blinded by those dazzling magic tools. You still have to focus on improving your forging skills. Comprehension of the Tao of forging is the foundation. Tool patterns are the foundation. As for the refining methods of those magic tools, they're just superficial knowledge. If you only focus on superficial knowledge and neglect the fundamentals, it'll be very difficult for you to have great achievements in the Tao of forging. You've relied on yourself to become a 3rd-tier lower-grade tool refiner. You should understand this, so I won't say anything more. This is the combination method of the 5 elements devil subduing seal. After you've mastered it, let Dao Yin burn it with the purple lightning divine flame. I'll see if there are any flaws. Chapter 411. Daoist Thunderflame took out a beastskin book and handed it to Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan took the beastskin book and flipped through it. This was the beastskin book that recorded the refinement methods for the 5 magic treasures. The refinement methods for the vermilion bird fan had been improved. Later on, there were some additional magical techniques and secret combination techniques that had been modified. Wang Daoyuan used a few days to refine the additional magical techniques of the 5 magic treasures. Daoist Lei Yan had also improved these spells. Now, the casting speed was much faster than before. He once again condensed the illusory images of the 5 magic treasures. This time, it took him less than 2 breaths of time to completely condense them. Afterwards, he fused the 5 illusory images into one, forming the 5 elements devil subduing seal. Daoist Thunderflame used his spiritual sense to carefully inspect the illusory image of the 5 elements devil subduing seal, nodding. Not bad. I don't see any problems. Dao Yin, use the purple thunder god fire to envelop the illusory image of the seal and burn it with all your might. Wang Daoyin followed Daoist Thunderflame's instructions and used the purple thunder god fire to envelop the illusory image of the seal. At this moment, the outer layer of the illusory image of the seal was covered in a layer of purple flames, and within the flames, there was even a faint flicker of lightning. Every part of the illusory image of the seal was being attacked by the flames. If there was a particularly weak spot, the entire illusory image of the seal would collapse. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the illusory image of the seal was still very stable and showed no signs of collapsing. Daoist Thunderflame nodded in satisfaction. It seems that I haven't gone senile. This 5 elements devil subduing seal no longer has any obvious weaknesses. Attacks from cultivators of the same level are unable to cause any substantial damage to it. Now, using this illusory image of the seal against early Zifu disciples can be said to be unstoppable. Dao Yin, you can put away the purple thunder god fire. Hearing his master's words, Wang Daoyin immediately put away the purple thunder god fire. Wang Daoyuan was also very satisfied with the illusory image of the seal. He laughed. Master, your skill in artificing is one of the best in all of Beiyuan Shoshin. He still has a long life ahead of him. It's not impossible for him to advance further in his cultivation and become a half-step Yuanian cultivator. How could he become senile? After perfecting the 5 elements devil suppression seal and hearing Wang Daoyuan's praise, Daoist Lei Yan was in a good mood. He stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "You sure know how to talk." This old man doesn't want to boast, but in all of Beiyuan Shoshin, there isn't a second person who can improve the 5 elements devil smiting seal to such an extent. I also added 2 more functions to this combination secret technique. Firstly, before the 5 intrinsic dermic artifacts are gathered, you can also fuse your existing intrinsic dermic artifacts into the 5 elements devil suppression seal's phantom to increase its power. This function is in the complete combination secret technique, but it's not in the sacrificial refining method that Luo Jiuyo gave you. He must have deleted it. Secondly, after the 5 natal dharma artifacts are gathered, you can combine them into the 5 elements devil subduing seal and nurture them. After all, nurturing 5 natal dermic artifacts at the same time was too time-consuming. I was hoping that you'd reach the golden core stage soon, so I thought of a way to lessen your burden. Directly nurturing the 5 elements devil suppression seal will consume the same amount of spiritual power, true essence, and spiritual sense. However, it will only consume a fifth of the original amount of time, saving you 4/5 of the time to cultivate. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. The current Great Seal Phantom was able to withstand Wang Daoyin's Purple Thunder Divine Fire. The Purple Thunder Divine Fire was a spell that Daoist Lei Yan had created from a minor ability. Its power definitely surpassed that of an ordinary 4th-level spell. The strength of the Great Seal Phantom should be able to contend against a mid-Zifu realm cultivator. If he were to fuse the White Tiger Blade and Black Tortoise Shield into the Great Seal Phantom, its power would more or less increase. It might even be able to threaten late Zifu realm cultivators. Right now, the 5 elements devil suppression seal was already his strongest technique. The 5 elements devil suppression seal's power mainly came from his intrinsic dermic artifacts. As his cultivation increased, his intrinsic dermic artifacts would also become stronger, and the 5 elements devil suppression seal's power would also continue to grow. The method of nurturing it was even more important. Nurturing the white tiger blade to the point where it was mentally linked had taken more than 10 years. Nurturing all 5 dermic artifacts to this level would take another 40 years. Apart from nurturing them to the point where they were mentally linked, he also needed to raise their ranks. To nurture them to the 4th level would take at least 200 years. Reducing the nurturing time by 4/5 meant that he had saved more than 160 years. In the eyes of any cultivator, 160 years was extremely important. As for the consumption of spiritual energy, true essence, and spiritual sense, Wang Daoyuan didn't care at all. Ever since he had discovered the space within the soul pearl, his cultivation method had been to use resources in exchange for time. With so many resources, even if the consumption rate was doubled, he would still be able to support it. He bowed solemnly, "Many thanks, Master." With this nurturing method, forming a golden core in 100 years isn't much of a problem. Daoist Lei Yan's face was also filled with pride. "No need to be so polite, disciple. It's only right for me to help you resolve your problems." Ever since Daoist demon suppression, no one else has been able to cultivate the 5 elements devil suppression seal to such an extent. The might of the 5 elements devil suppression seal has also not appeared in the world for 10,000 years. Merge the white tiger blade and black tortoise shield into the seal and attack me with all your might. I also want to see how powerful the 5 elements devil suppression seal, which was known as one seal, 10,000 demons fall, is. Hearing Daoist Lei Yan's words, Wang Daoyuan didn't hesitate and summoned the white tiger blade and black tortoise shield, merging them into the 5 elements devil suppression seal. He wasn't worried about Daoist Lei Yan. At most, the 5 elements devil suppression seal could only injure late Zifu realm cultivators. Daoist Lei Yan was a peak Aurus core stage cultivator. Any random spell he used would be able to destroy the 5 elements devil suppression seal. After merging the white tiger blade and black tortoise shield, the 5 elements devil suppression seal became more solid. After a few breaths, the entire seal seemed to have solidified. Daoist Lei Yan stood with his hands behind his back. A wisp of spiritual energy flashed from his body and a purple defensive barrier appeared around him. Wang Daoyuan saw that Daoist Lei Yan had already made his preparations and poured all the spiritual energy he could muster into the seal. Afterwards, he controlled the 5 elements devil suppression seal and smashed it towards Daoist Lei Yan. The 5 elements devil suppression seal's speed was quite fast. Furthermore, it emitted a suppressive force that suppressed its target, making it unable to dodge. Of course, this suppressive force was completely useless against Daoist Lei Yan. In the blink of an eye, the 5 elements devil suppression seal landed on Daoist Lei Yan's defensive barrier. A trace of fluctuation appeared on the barrier. This fluctuation was extremely weak and would be hard to notice if one didn't pay close attention. Wang Daoyuan didn't think much of it, but Daoist Lei Yan's face was filled with shock. Half a breath later, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual energy was exhausted and the 5 elements devil suppression seal collapsed. The white tiger blade and black tortoise shield returned to his side. Daoist Lei Yan reacted and sighed in admiration. It seems that the rumors of the 5 elements devil suppression seal are true. You're only at the early Zifu realm and only have 2 natal magic artifacts. You were actually able to shake the defensive barrier that I condensed with 10% of my strength. Ordinary late Zifu realm cultivators don't have such strength. This move of yours is completely capable of breaking through the defenses of ordinary late Zifu realm cultivators. One seal, 10,000 demons submit. This rumor is indeed true. If you can refine 5 natal magic artifacts and comprehend the essence of the 5 elements divine beasts, you can fuse them into this seal. Once you reach the late Zifu realm, you'll have the ability to kill early golden core cultivators. To be able to kill a golden core cultivator at the late Zifu realm, such a cultivator is rarely seen even in 10,000 years. Even Daoist demon suppression didn't have this ability. Wang Daoyuan immediately took out a jar of spirit peach dew and drank a few mouthfuls. Panting, he said, "The power of this move is strong enough, but the consumption is a bit too high. One move will exhaust all of one's spiritual power. If one doesn't win, one will die. I don't dare to hope that a late Zifu realm cultivator can kill a golden core cultivator. I've nurtured the white tiger blade for over 10 years, but I haven't even touched the edges of its essence. Comprehending the essence of the 5 elements divine beasts is easier said than done. Chapter 412. After drinking the spirit peach dew, his spirit energy quickly recovered and Wang Daoyuan's condition improved. Comprehending the 5 elements divine beast's charm was too difficult. He only knew that Zhou Wan had comprehended the Scarlet Phoenix's charm. Thunderflame smiled. How many years has it been since you established your Violet Palace? To be able to comprehend the White Tiger sword intent and nurture the White Tiger blade to the point where your mind is connected with it, you've already surpassed the majority of cultivators. I don't have a divine beast manifestation, but I still have some understanding of the charm of a divine beast manifestation. To comprehend the charm, it would take at least 40 to 50 years. However, your comprehension ability far surpasses ordinary people, so you might be able to do it faster. I can't help you in this aspect, but you can seek guidance from other cultivators who have comprehended the charm. Who knows, they might have some tricks. I've already modified the 5 elements devil subduing seal for you. You like to search everywhere for comprehension. Do you have any good materials that you need me to refine into magic tools? Wang Daoyuan replied, a few years ago, when senior martial brother Zhao Liang was building his foundation, he was disturbed by his inner demons. I often traveled in the northern mountains and found a piece of profound ice chalcedony. Unfortunately, this profound ice chalcedony is only of the 3rd grade. It's enough to suppress senior martial brother Zhao Liang's inner demons, but it's not enough to overcome the Violet Palace Heart Devil tribulation. I've always wanted to refine it into a magic tool that can suppress inner demons and increase its power. However, my refining skills aren't enough and I'm worried that this material will be destroyed, so I can only ask for Master's help. After speaking, he took out the profound ice chalcedony and handed it to Thunderflame. Thunderflame took the profound ice chalcedony and said, "This profound ice chalcedony is not bad. It has a lot of ice attributes spiritual energy and isn't far from the 3rd grade. It can be used to refine the 3rd grade devil subduing pendant. Suppressing the Violet Palace Heart Devil tribulation is just a piece of cake." Wang Daoyuan originally thought that it would be good if he could refine a 3rd grade magic tool. With the 3rd grade devil subduing pendant, Violet Palace realm cultivators would be immune to inner demons. This thing also had a very strong defensive effect against external demons attacking the heart. To Thunderflame, refining a 3rd grade magic tool was just child's play. During the refining process, he also explained the refining techniques to Wang Daoyuan and the other 2. In order to let the 3 of them learn more, he even slowed down. Even so, it only took him half a day to complete the demon-suppressing pendant. The demon-suppressing pendant didn't have any patterns carved on it, but it was densely packed with tool patterns. Venerable Lei Yen handed the demon-suppressing pendant to Wang Daoyuan. Apart from suppressing inner demons and resisting external demons attacking the heart, I also added spirit-gathering runes. It would automatically absorb water spiritual energy and metal spiritual energy and condense them into ice spiritual energy. This function wasn't very powerful, and the possibility of it evolving wasn't too high. It could only replenish the daily wear and tear. After all, the demon-suppressing pendant's function mainly relied on the ice attribute spiritual energy within the profound ice jade marrow. Once the ice spiritual energy was consumed too much, the quality of the mysterious ice chalcedony would decrease. If the ice spiritual energy was exhausted, it might lose its effect completely. Now that I have the spirit gathering tool pattern, even if I run out of ice spiritual energy, as long as the tool pattern is not destroyed, I can slowly recover in an environment rich in ice, water, and metal spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan took the demon-suppressing pendant. The current demon-suppressing pendant was no longer as dense as the profound ice jade marrow. The surface didn't have any cold feeling, and it looked like an ordinary transparent crystal. Injecting spiritual energy into it, a cold aura seeped into his body, making him feel very calm and clear-headed. Wang Daoyuan continued to stay with Venerable Lei Yan, and Venerable Lei Yan did his best to teach him the art of refining. 7 years later, Wang Daoyuan was in the refining room, inscribing tool patterns on a sword embryo. 2 hours later, the tool pattern inscription was completed. He injected spiritual energy into it, and the sword ray flew out, slashing at a huge rock, leaving a 2-inch deep mark. Venerable Lei Yan's spiritual sense swept over, and he smiled. The sword ray can leave a 2-inch deep mark on the sword testing rock. It's undoubtedly an intermediate grade 3rd tier magic tool. Your perception is indeed extraordinary, and you can already refine intermediate grade 3rd tier magic tools. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "It's all thanks to Master's teachings. In the past, I didn't have anyone to teach me, so I was stuck at the upper grade 2nd tier for dozens of years. I only managed to break through to the lower grade 3rd tier because of someone's guidance." Venerable Lei Yan waved his hand and said, "Don't be so humble. I've taught many people, but none of them can match your speed. I've taught Zhao Liang for dozens of years, but he's only at the edge of becoming a 3rd tier blacksmith. Dao Invisibility's talent is also pretty good, and I've been teaching him for over 80 years, but he's only at the lower grade 3rd tier. But it's a pity that you can't stay here for long." In the records, his last appearance was at the lower reaches of the Myriad River. Thus, I'm guessing that he died in the Sky Beheading Mountain Range in the eastern region of the state of Zhao. If you can find where he died, you'll have a high chance of obtaining the true Sun Flame. True Monarch 100 Spirits is the only one I can determine the approximate location of his death. He likes to collect all kinds of strange spiritual beasts and spiritual plants. You can use this as a clue to find where he died. Metal-type spiritual fire needs to be found in high-grade metal-type spiritual veins or ore veins. High-grade spiritual veins have long been occupied by powerful factions, and you won't be able to obtain a metal-type spiritual fire. However, there are many grade 4 spiritual veins in the southern wilderness. Furthermore, most of them are ownerless. Although the spiritual energy in the southern wilderness is violent, it won't be a problem if you have a spiritual fire. In the entire Beiyuan Xiuxian, only the southern wilderness or some unknown mystic realms can find metal-type spiritual fire. There are many ferocious beasts and demonic cultivators there, and there are occasionally grade 3 or 4 demons. Your cultivation isn't high enough yet, so it's best if you reach the late-stage Zifu realm before traveling to the southern wilderness. Chapter 413. Wang Daoyuan pondered for a long time. The place where true Monarch 100 Spirit passed away was very likely within the Sky Beheading Mountain Range in the east of Qingli County and Linchuan County. Of course, true Monarch 100 Spirit could also pass through the Sky Beheading Mountain Range along the Sky Beheading Mountain Range and head towards Linhai County in search of fortuitous opportunities. Even if he went to Linhai County in search of fortuitous opportunities, it was unlikely that he would bring all the spirit beasts and spirit plants with him. He had raised many spirit plants and spirit beasts, so he had to have a place to raise them. Unless true Monarch 100 Spirit passed away outside while searching for fortuitous opportunities. Otherwise, his place of death should be west of the Sky Beheading Mountain Range. Even if he passed away outside, his cave abode couldn't have been moved away, so it was still worth searching for. It was hard to say if they could find the Red Yang primordial fire, but if they could find the cave abode where he raised spirit plants and spirit beasts, it would be a huge profit. However, the range given by Daoist Lei Yan was still too big. From the north of Qingli County to the south of Linchuan County, there was still a distance of 40 to 50,000 miles. The outer boundary of the Sky Beheading Mountain Range wasn't fixed. For example, the 100 River Lake was 8 to 9,000 miles west of the main mountain range. And at the eastern end of the Wild Goose Mountain Range, the outer boundary of the Sky Beheading Mountain Range was the narrowest, about 2,000 miles. It was easier said than done to find a cave abode in such a large range. Wang Daoyuan sighed. This range isn't small either. I'll try to find it. It'll be best if I can find it, but if not, I'll have to go deep underground and look for the earth fire. Taoist Lei Yan smiled. If it was someone else, they might not have any hope, but not you. On the day of the hidden Tao Purple Mansion ceremony, that old man Heaven Seer secretly used the aura viewing technique to see your luck. Although he hid it well, he couldn't hide it from my divine sense. That old man had seen the luck of a half-step Yuanian cultivator before, but he wasn't as shocked as he was. Therefore, your luck is definitely stronger than that of a half-step Yuanian cultivator. Prosperous luck doesn't mean that you'll have great achievements, but your luck will definitely be especially good. It's not easy for an ordinary peak golden core cultivator to obtain a spirit fire. There are many records of ancient cultivators recorded in the Divine Weapon Pavilion. There are many cultivators who have spirit fires, but at most, they have 3 types of spirit fires. As for you, you are only at the early Zifu disciple level, but you already have 3 types of spirit fire. It's not impossible to find all the 5 element spiritual fires in the future. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a 3rd grade mid-grade flying kite and said, "This is a flying magic tool that I refined for you. It's called the Firestorm Flying Kite. Your flying kite is quite interesting, so I didn't modify its outer appearance. I only made some adjustments to the tool patterns and materials. This flying kite was made from blood fire hibiscus, and the 2 wings were fused with wind attribute materials. Using it to fly, he didn't need to inject more spiritual energy into it. He could fly for more than 5,000 miles in 2 hours. If he increased the input of spiritual power, he could fly 6,000 miles in 2 hours at the fastest. With this item, no cultivator below the Golden Core realm would be able to catch up to you. Most rank 3 demon birds only had this speed. I also added a special rune on the flying kite. Once activated, it can execute the rank 3 flying fire escape. The flying fire escape art was extremely fast, but it could only travel about 1 mile at a time, so it wasn't very useful for traveling. If it was used for a sneak attack or to evade an opponent's attack, it would definitely be successful. You have to be careful when using it. If you use it while flying at high speed, the magic tool and your body might not be able to withstand it. This thing was just refined, so I didn't know how many times it could withstand the flying fire escape art. You have to think about it yourself. Wang Daoyuan bowed and said, "Master, I'll be leaving now. Please take care of yourself. If I'm lucky enough to find the earth essence, I might have to trouble you to refine the Kirin seal for me." Master Lei Yan waved his hand and said, "Go. Cultivate well and try to form your golden core as soon as possible." Wang Daoyuan left the cave and used the white tiger blade to cut off a thumb-sized blood fire hibiscus branch and stored it in his storage pouch. As Master Lei Yan's disciple, no one said anything about him cutting off a branch. Wang Daoyin drove the flying boat and sent Wang Daoyuan, Zhao Liang, and Wang Daoshu out of the mountain gate. Wang Mingting had stayed here for 10 years and had long reached the age where his spiritual roots were tested. 5 years ago, he was tested to have a fire spiritual root of 7 inches and 8 parts. Moreover, he had 2 spiritual roots. His talent was much stronger than Zhao Liang's. His other spiritual root was the wood spiritual root. This kind of talent was very suitable for refining pills and equipment. With Master Lei Yan, the top equipment refiner in Beiyuan Shouxian, he was naturally the most suitable for refining equipment. Now that he had become Wang Daoyin's disciple and joined the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he stayed at the Treasure Cauldron Mountain to cultivate. The little guy was already 15 years old, so there was nothing to worry about. Zhao Liang only brought his soul lamp back so that he could be recorded in the Wang family's genealogy. Wang Daoyuan and the other 2 arrived at the Divine Weapon Pavilion's mountain gate and boarded the flying boat to return to Clear Glass City. After leaving the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Wang Daoyuan stored the storage pouch containing the blood fire hibiscus branch into the spiritual pearl space. There were only peak foundation establishment cultivators on the flying boat, so he was not afraid of being discovered. His clone cut off a few sprouts on the branch and planted them near the life spiritual fire together with the old branch. Whether they could survive or not would depend on their luck. More than 20 days later, Wang Daoyuan and the other two arrived at the Divine Weapon Pavilion's shop in Clear Glass City. Not long after landing, he received a message from the 12th uncle, asking him to go back and refine the Foundation Establishment pill. There was also a treasure to give him. This meant that he had killed a rank 3 demonic beast. Other than its demonic core, there were probably other valuable things on the demonic beast. Wang Daoyuan immediately rode his sword back to Jade Spring Peak. The 12th uncle was already waiting for him outside. Seeing Wang Daoyuan return, he hurriedly said, "You're finally back. If you delay any longer, I'm afraid that the good stuff won't be able to be used." Hearing him say this, Wang Daoyuan's curiosity was piqued. What good stuff is so delicate? The 12th uncle smiled but did not answer. He brought him into the secret treasury under the ancestral temple. After entering the treasury, there were even more items inside. The last time he came in with Tai Gong, there were only some refining materials and magic tools left. Now, there were a few more shelves. On them were some rank 3 spiritual herbs, pills, talismans, and formation discs. 12th uncle took out a jade box that was about a foot long from a wooden shelf. Then, after spending a long time, he finally opened the jade box. Inside was a foot-long emerald green feather. There were no gorgeous patterns on it, but it contained dense wood attribute spiritual energy, far surpassing that of ordinary demonic beast feathers. Wang Daoyuan asked somewhat excitedly, "This is the life feather of a rank 3 demonic beast. It's not easy for an early-stage Zifu realm cultivator to kill a demonic beast." The 12th uncle smiled proudly. "Who am I? Isn't killing a rank 3 low-grade emerald green sparrow like child's play?" Wang Daoyuan immediately closed the jade box and stored it in the spirit pearl space, using the life spirit fire to nourish it. This life feather had lost a lot of spiritual energy, so it could barely maintain its rank 3 low grade. It was a bit difficult to refine the vermilion bird fan with a rank 3 low-grade life feather. Previously, he could refine the vermilion bird fan with ordinary materials. Now, it was not a problem to refine it with a rank 3 low-grade life feather. It was just that the power might not reach the expected effect, which was a matter of nurturing it for a while. Using the life spirit fire to nourish the wood attribute life feather was very suitable. After dealing with the life feather, Wang Daoyuan asked, "So, there are already rank 3 demonic beasts eyeing Fallen Dragon Ridge?" The 12th uncle nodded and said, "Yes, this happened more than 2 years ago. This emerald green sparrow ate a few rank 1 black cloud wolves, which alarmed Big Black. Big Black warned the clansmen guarding there, and the clansmen guarding there were very decisive. They immediately controlled the formation to protect the clan's property. This emerald green sparrow's attack power was not strong, so it could not break through the ranked 2 high-grade defensive formation in a short time. 5th uncle and I rushed over to help. This would attribute demonic beast's fighting power was very weak. It could not even break through my water dragon prison, and 5th uncle and I killed it together." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.